Dave Flood, man. Welcome to Going Again podcast.
I am stoked to be here.
I'm stoked you're here.
We're stoked you're here, man. This is great.
You guys have become a huge part of my life in a very short period of time.
Likewise.
And I, as far as friends go and that, I'm super close, even though I'm super far.
Yeah,
oh man,
I'm with you, man.
I love you guys.
Yeah, it's incredible that in such a short amount of time that we managed to make some pretty ballin' memories, man. And,
yeah, that's what that kind of stuff does. Like not just the movie stuff, but that team stuff.
Yeah.
It builds lifelong bonds. You can, it's like those friends you have. Everybody has them that you cannot talk to for years.
Yeah.
Time and distance doesn't exist between friends.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then there's other ones that you don't talk to for a while, and you're like, I'm not going to pick up the phone.
Yeah, I didn't even like him back then.
Totally, man. I actually just played a golf tournament with a friend like that. I have some, like a guy that I've known since grade 7 kind of thing. And whenever we get together, man, it's just awesome every time.
And they act like they're in grade 7.
Yeah, big time.
I just caught part of a movie last night that Tanya and her son were watching called Buddy Games or something like that.
Never heard of it.
Buddy Games.
Yeah, it's actually pretty. Josh Duhamel was in it. I only saw maybe half an hour of it, but it was basically like that. Lifelong friends that they get together once a year and fuck with each other.
Very cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, right on. Well, what's happening? What are you doing right now in your life?
Hey, you guys just did TIFF, right? Like
yes.
Bodyguard stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, close protection.
Close protection. That's
yeah,
what
you and 0001 Sean Lawrence.
That's true.
Yeah.
And another good friend of mine, Jeff Broughton, and another new good friend, Kathy. And I forget Kathy's last name.
Oh, well, shout out to Kathy. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
She's a retired cop as well.
Cool.
Okay.
So the four of us were a team at one of the venues.
Nice.
And it was awesome. Like, what's it like for you? I mean, for all the celebrities, it's obviously a lot of fun, and and anyone who's a guest. But for you, you're working. What's it like?
Well, yeah, I just slipped back into that mode of when I was doing what I used to do in my past life.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you're game face on, and it's not about the paparazzi or the celebrity. And that's what I notice.
I'm judging by your suit.
Yeah, you guys look
You
amazing.
look like you were looking for that camera, man. That was a nice suit.
That's another part of the story of it, because there were some, funny or interesting or whatever, maybe funny to me, but you're not watching the celebrity as much as you're like, wow, I've seen these actors. I've never been that starstruck guy.
Right.
Sure.
They're just people to me. People with a talent or blessed,
sure,
whatever, and more power to them making the kind of money they're making.
100%.
Part of the lifestyle you see gets to them in a lot of ways, but just to back it up, I was there to do a job, not to watch them. And there's some people in that field, and I'm not trying to badmouth anybody, but you watch them, you see them watching them. You're like, why? And we had to go and direct a couple of people, not from our group or company, but had to direct a few people to don't stand facing them. You have to watch the crowd.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, wow.
But they weren't part of our
like
team.
their own security of sorts?
There was another security company. There are several security companies involved in this whole thing.
Okay, I
and
imagine.
They supplemented. Yeah. But we, as a core 4, were the close protection for the cast on the red carpet, doing the interviews, and then going out to meet and greet the fans and sign autographs. And then once we got them into the theater, our job was done until it was over and they had to get back to their vehicles.
Okay.
So there were other people there, and they didn't have the experience or the training, and that's all it was. Like I said, I'm not bad-mouthing them. They just didn't know.
So what was your role exactly in comparison perhaps to the others?
Make sure that nobody got their hands on the stars or the cast.
Okay.
Because they get right up close, obviously. They're taking selfies. Some of the actors will take the people's cell phone and do the selfie with cheek to cheek.
Yeah.
Some of the actors you could tell were nervous and they would do everything at arm's length, to sign. They would take their pen and their picture or whatever and sign, but their arms were extended.
It's got to be scary, man.
Yeah, that's got to be nerve-wracking to be someone, especially so mega.
Like it doesn't
in the
happen.
eyes of everybody.
It doesn't happen to me very often.
But
sometimes
when it does,
You go to the grocery store,
man.
somebody's looking at you. You never know.
Yeah, you know.
I'm surprised they can contain themselves on the set of a show.
Right?
Well, they're
where
all
there is no
professionals.
security.
Yeah.
So it's funny. We're talking about this. Maybe you should let the viewer, listener, in on what it was you did in a previous life that gets you there.
So I was a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
I switched from one major metropolitan police department to another one that was major as well, but smaller. And that was just for the purposes of, actually, I didn't like the job I was doing with the first police department, and there was no sign of me getting out. I was a traffic man.
Okay.
And the reason I was a traffic man was because I was a cadet first, and they trained me how to ride the Harleys.
Okay.
And then when I did my training after police college, I was at a very busy division, probably the busiest back in that day. And guns were just starting to come into play and a lot of drugs.
Like guns on the street.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of drugs. So for my 3 or 4 month training period, I was involved in everything. I literally these high speed car chases, got drug dealers throwing packets of cocaine out the window. People running away and throwing a gun, car chases and a gun going out the window and stuff like that. Like it was always, and some of the most disgusting homes or residences that I've ever been in, and just like unbelievable. So I was there and I was loving it because I was 21 at the time.
Yeah.
And that's what you wanted to do as
Pretty
a
action-packed.
cop, kick ass and put bad guys in jail.
Totally.
And when they told me I was going back to the traffic unit, because I was motorcycle trained, and they were doing that because they were trying to build up the traffic units again. And so there were a number of people, I was very fortunate, a number of people that went to bat for me high up in the division I was in that wanted to keep me there. So that was a really good feeling. But in the end, they were told, "Leave my cadet alone," was the words I was told that.
Oh, wow.
They said, the superintendent, and back I went to the traffic unit. So I was riding the Harley in the winter.
Oh my God.
They put a sidecar on it, and you could not wear enough clothes to stay warm.
Hey, I ride mine in the winter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's hardcore.
2 wheels, long johns and leather, baby.
Yeah, but is there tons of snow on the ground?
No.
The snow's on the grass, and he's on the dry road.
Yeah.
That is kind of how he does
well,
it. It's nuts.
It didn't matter whether, like, blizzard out. It had to be...
That's
It
crazy.
had to be
Yeah, that is
minus, if I remember correctly, it had to be minus 20 without the wind chill factor
Jesus.
before they would pull the Harleys off the road. So the Harleys were more important than we were, the engines. So they put a sidecar on it so that you didn't wipe out. But if you've ever driven a motorcycle with a sidecar on it, and maybe a few of your listeners or viewers will have done that, if you turn too hard to the right,
Yeah.
the sidecar pops in the air.
Yeah, no doubt.
Or if you hit something, like I hit a curb one time, turning right, making a right-hand turn, I hit a curb slightly, the sidecar popped up in the air, and I was headed straight towards a streetcar.
Oh, Jesus.
And some of your listeners can't see me, but I was just leaning, giving her. And I was going down, and my glove touched the side of the streetcar briefly, but I was oh shit. I had the pucker factor going huge. And the sidecar's up in the air, and people are thinking, wow, look at this guy, this cop, he's Daredevil or whatever, or stunt driver. I'm like, I'm shitting bricks, you know, and I got it straightened out and back down on the road, and away I went. And I think I, you know, went to the station and went to the washroom. I don't
That's
know.
hilarious.
And you must imagine that there's a whole bunch of people seeing this, kind of loving
It was
that
in
a
front
cop
of-
is about to hit a fucking TTC.
It was in front of the Eaton Center.
Oh my God.
Dundas Square.
Yeah, right there.
Jeez.
There's nobody around.
No,
Yeah. People are loving cops nowadays making mistakes. Holy
yeah,
fuck.
yeah.
I was
There
doing a
was-
show once where two coppers were coming around the corner on their bikes, two single bikes, no sidecars.
Yeah.
And as they're coming around the corner, the younger guy on the inside was looking at some extras that were standing on the. I was watching.
geez.
I was watching him watch them. And he drove straight into the other guy. It was awesome.
Oh no.
They both went down. One of the guys snapped off his floorboard, and the crew applauded.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
They thought it was a good stunt.
Yeah, it's great.
And hopefully
hilarious.
they jumped up and.
Well,
you
we
know,
all
they-
helped them pick up the bikes. It's so fun.
Yeah, but they were, you know, dangerous as hell.
Yeah.
You know, from riding a bike.
Yeah.
You
Big
gotta
time,
you
yeah.
gotta watch, and even a police bike. I got pushed off out of a lane on the Don Valley Parkway on a police Harley by an elderly woman
Wow.
Oh yeah.
who was indicating to come over, and I was right beside her. And you know, I was like, she's not. But then her car started to move over, and I had either throttle down or throttle up, which, you know, I wasn't going to speed up because if she'd probably
You
take
never
out
know.
my back wheel.
Yeah.
So I actually moved over onto the shoulder. Luckily, there was a shoulder on that part of the Don Valley. It was up by, it was past Don Mills. So
okay.
before like York Mills,
Yeah.
Lawrence
You
area.
going north?
Yeah, I was going north. And she pushed me right over, came right into the lane. She looked at me. I yelled at her while
Yeah,
she's
what the
coming
f- you
over, and
doing?
she looked at me and pulled over. So I went on the shoulder, I dropped back, got in behind her, and I pulled her over. And I was still polite. Weird.
Well, you were trained.
Well, you knew
But-
you knew she was not totally.
I said, "Did you not see me?" And she said, "Yes."
Oh, fascinating.
And I said, "What are you doing?" She goes, "There's enough room for both of us."
Wow.
And she said it very matter-of-factly.
Oh, fascinating.
And I was like, "You should not be on the road." And she was older, much older. She had white hair.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I was dumbfounded.
Did you give her a ticket?
You know what? I don't even think I did.
Yeah.
I think I was just so amazed at I don't know, the lack of common sense or stupidity or
Yeah.
ignorance. I don't know what it
Yeah,
was.
that's something.
Hilarious.
But yeah.
So then
That's wild.
So you're a motorcycle cop doing traffic.
Yes.
And then you were bored of that, and that's not what you
Well,
wanted to
I
do.
wanted out. I
Yeah.
wanted out, and I did what's called a departmental accident for a sergeant in 55 Division. He got his door creamed when he was getting out. So I did the accident for him. The other driver I ended up arresting actually, and for a warrant. And then that sergeant said, "Hey, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know." And I said, "As a
Okay.
matter of fact, there is. Get me into 55 Division, which was the beach." Or
Okay.
The beaches, as I used to call it. But anyway, he called me, said he worked it out on his end for me to come over. All I had to do was get the transfer okayed at my unit, Central Traffic. And my inspector laughed at me. He said, "You're not going anywhere." He said, only the senior guys can get out of here. So I was just stuck doing my time. I worked with a bunch of great guys, but doing traffic was just not for me. Doing radar and accidents was not for
Yeah.
a brand new cop, especially coming from where I did, with
Right.
the division I did. So a good friend of mine on my shift lived in Oshawa, and his parents lived in the townhouse complex with the current police chief from Durham at the time.
Okay.
So he he paged me back when we had pagers, and so I was doing a pay duty. When I got free, I phoned my buddy from a payphone.
Remember those?
Yeah, because we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
So for reference, this is 1989.
Right.
Yeah, 89. So he said, "Get your ass out," and I quote, "Get your ass out to Durham. They're hiring without having to quit." So I was like, "Oh yeah." So I didn't even, I knew where Durham was and all that, and a bunch of my friends were just starting to buy houses, and they were buying them in Pickering, but working in Toronto. At the time, my parents were both real estate agents. My dad had taken a package from his company and eventually got his real estate license, and my mom and him worked together. So I knew that housing prices, I would never be able to afford a house in Toronto. I would be living in Durham or Mississauga, and most likely Durham, in order to afford a house. So I was like, why? I can't believe that I was smart enough then to actually formulate in my head, why would I travel to Toronto
Right.
if I'm living in Durham, if I can work in Durham?
Right.
And I wanted out of the traffic unit, and Durham didn't have a traffic unit.
So were you inspired to work in Toronto just because it's a big city?
I grew up.
Is that what happened?
I grew up in Toronto.
Oh, I
Okay.
see.
I graduated high school. I knew that if I went to university that following September, that I would be kicked out or fail because I was not in the school mode anymore. I needed a break from school. School was mostly a struggle for me, although I did well in my last 2 years of high school. School was a struggle for me. I don't know why, but
It was a struggle for me as well, but I think it was because I was bored.
It was a
Yeah.
struggle for me because I just didn't go.
Well, I did not go until grade 10. So the school system in Toronto was 3 different schools at the time. You had your public school, which went K to 6. Junior high was 7, 8, and 9. And then high school was 10 to 13.
Okay.
So, yeah, I struggled in a little bit in public school, and then more in junior high. I still passed, but not, my marks weren't that great.
Right.
But then I picked them up in the last couple of years of high school, mainly because I stopped caring what my parents thought and trying to hide stuff from them, like a bad mark. So I never showed them report cards till the very end. And then the last time I had great marks, except for I failed one course that I dropped out of, but it's still registered on my record. So I was like, fuck this. I'm going to stand up for myself when my parents tear me a new strip.
Yeah. Speaking of things your parents didn't know, I didn't know you didn't go to high school.
Well, there were some days.
That's
Yes.
okay. I got a few phone calls. I'm good.
But look at how you turned out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And that's,
okay.
I'm
okay.
all the stories that my parents hear now or have heard over the last 30 years,
Yeah.
it shocked them a bit, but you can laugh about it after.
100%.
Oh yeah,
100%.
We laugh about this stuff all the time.
So I joined Durham,
Yeah.
and I got in Durham, and then I was a uniform cop for about a year and a half, and I got into a plainclothes unit.
Okay.
It was a fledgling unit, street crime unit it was called at the time. So it was, people call it undercover, but we weren't undercover. We just got to dress and
In a nice suit.
No, it looked like how we want. No,
Oh, okay.
no, it was like street clothes, whatever.
Okay.
Oh wow.
I grew a ponytail out of the back of the middle of my head and shaved
No
my hair
way.
underneath. Yeah, and I grew a long goatee.
You should do that again.
And I actually put an elastic at one point in my goatee. It was so long. So
Oh fucking right.
I had some fake ID made, and so
I'm trying to
Wow.
picture Dave like that. That's funny.
I think I still have the Money Mart photo ID card in the fake name. But I did that for 3 years,
I'd like to see it.
back in uniform, and then I started applying to the tactical unit.
In Durham?
In Durham, yeah. So the first time I applied, I was told at the outset I wasn't going to get it because there were 2 guys ahead of me, that had been trying out a couple more times. So it was kind of like, do your time. You can't just show up
Right.
and walk on.
You can't jump the line.
field. Yeah.
Right.
So, but I made an impact, and then the second time around, the end of '99, I won one of the two spots. And the funny thing is my really good friend won basically the other spot from the team, but he was denied it by the deputy chief. The deputy chief said, "You're not getting that guy." So it was me and another guy that I had worked with, which, God. But anyway, we there were two spots, got them, and that was January 1st, 2000. I started with the tactical support unit, hostage rescue team, and then I stayed there until my first promotion in 2012. And then I went out for 9 months and came back. I knew I was coming back. They wanted me back, and the sergeant that was there didn't want to be there anymore. So then I came back, and eventually I wrote my staff sergeant's exams. It was good. It was a right decision, but it took me out of the fun.
Ah, I see.
So I spent a year, and then I pulled the pin. So I just had over 30 years before I retired. I retired on the day before my 50th birthday.
Good for you.
But that was a financial, economical decision, because you had to leave before you were 50 in order to cash out your pension and invest it. So I'm not getting a pension check. All my money I pulled out and privately invested.
Okay, cool.
And a lot of people were doing it at the time, but a lot of people were more nervous. And, I had good friends say, "Oh, I'm so worried about you, Dave. Is this the right thing?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." Because I spent almost 2 years investigating and researching private investors or like companies,
Right.
and interviewing them. And I eventually went with one wealth management company. It was the best decision I ever made.
Obviously, it
Good for
was.
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, good. I mean, I've seen pictures of your backyard and all this. I mean, you're obviously doing okay.
It's well, I mean,
Not
that's
to mention
It's
the
beautiful.
boat.
Yeah, the boat. Yeah, man.
it's not solely me. My fiance had a house. I had a house.
Yeah.
We sold that, and she didn't want a mortgage, so we put all of our money from the sale of our homes into that house. And,
Right on. Okay.
And again, that was the right decision, and that really
gorgeous.
allowed me to pull the pin as well, financially. So yeah, and I'm a big boater, so
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I
We've
love
seen the
water.
boat.
I love the
Yeah,
water.
yeah, dude, you are Baywatch to a T, man.
Well, you know what? It's funny. Well, I guess again, funny to me. When I was in the traffic unit, I didn't have, I was living with my parents, and I was a brand new cop. And then I had a sergeant that had a boat, and him and his wife lived on their boat. And I grew up on Miami Vice.
Right.
Oh,
Sure.
fuck yeah.
So
Of course.
I identified with Don Johnson. I even had the suit.
Do you have any socks on?
Today I do, yeah, but I didn't then. I had I had the shoes with the mesh shoes and the
Oh my
gray
God.
silver 2-piece suit with the T-shirt. It was, that was the style.
Did you ever desire to drive a boat as a police officer? Is that a thing?
Yes, it is the Marine unit, but no, because the rest of the stuff that goes with the Marine unit. The Marine
Oh,
unit
okay.
in Toronto is got the right thing, because they do it all. They do the ice water rescue. They do everything. Whereas Durham's Marine unit, they're traffic men in the winter. So and then some of them double as Marine unit.
Okay, so they come back up onto the street.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I see.
They come up out of the water, grow legs, and go back.
Right.
But yeah, so
Okay.
I that sergeant living on his boat, and me growing up on Miami Vice, and embracing that lifestyle. Plus, I grew up on boats.
Sure.
My dad bought me my first boat when I was 10.
Sorry, son. Had you gone to school, you'd have got a boat.
But he bought me what was called a sea flea. It was a boat.
Oh, I know.
built-
I know what
it
you
was
mean.
like almost like a pontoon boat, a hydroplane boat, with no motor. Well, at the time it didn't have a motor. But then we got a 10 horsepower, and a 10 horsepower motor made that thing rocket. And I was 10, so I loved it. Didn't have a cottage, used it at my aunt and uncle's. But that was my first taste of boating.
Very cool.
So
That's cool.
A buddy of ours actually owns the 2 police badges from Miami Vice.
Oh yeah,
What do you mean?
Like Tubbs and Crocker? Was that
Crockett.
Crockett?
yeah.
Yeah, the 2 cops.
Okay.
The badges they used to carry on the show.
Yeah.
A buddy of ours has those 2.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
From the
Shout
props
it out,
department, or yeah,
Yeah, directly from the actors.
yeah.
Oh man, right on.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know who that is. That sounds awesome.
Well, he collects police badges.
Okay, I see.
So those are 2 of his.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
So that sergeant inspired me to buy a boat. So I bought, my first home was a boat.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I bought a boat that I could afford. Not the best brand.
Another Sea Flea.
No, but it was a 27 foot cabin cruiser.
Right.
But it was perfect for one guy.
Yeah.
And I lived on it as soon as I could in the late spring.
27 foot?
Yeah.
Is it big enough? Like, is it big
Oh
inside?
yeah, it had a V berth inside and a table that dropped down into the bed. I had a TV in there, and yeah,
A Nintendo.
yeah, no, not. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it other than sleeping or going out.
Right.
On
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I was only on it in the nice weather.
Right.
Then for the winter, it would come out. That first winter I moved back with my parents, I lasted a month before I wanted to,
Yeah.
of course.
I never think of cops living with their parents. I don't know what that struck me when you said that you lived with your parents as a young cop.
Well, I was when I started, it was a month before my 20th birthday.
Right.
And I was essentially fresh out of high school.
Now that's a cadet, right?
Yeah, that's the cadet.
Okay.
So I was still living with my parents. Fast forward a year and a half, and I, became, you still had to kind of reapply it wasn't a given that you were going to become a constable.
Right.
But it was pretty much, because otherwise you would have been fired already.
Sure. Why
So,
keep you?
Yeah. So I became a cop, and I was in school for 13 weeks at the time, through the summer, or halfway through the summer of '88, and then back to home with my parents, because again I didn't have any money saved, and the salary, although good for the time,
Yeah.
wasn't good enough to have a house.
Sure.
Without savings.
Saving for a while.
Yeah, so then I started my career, and then, like I said, I bought the boat in '89, and like I said, and then I moved back for a month to my parents.
What kind of boat do you have now? What is that you bought?
So
recently?
I have a 32-foot Baja offshore boat.
Okay.
And that's for going fast.
Yeah, it's typically called a go fast boat. Yeah.
Go fast, spend money boat.
Yes. Yeah.
Man,
Lots
it
of-
is a sweet.
Now is that considered a
sweet
cigarette
looking
boat?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's got, but it's got a 2-burner stove in it, a fridge, a microwave, had a TV in it.
Oh,
but it was
wow.
an old TV. It's got a
Really?
stand-up head in it, so you don't have to pull out the bed, to use the washroom. You can.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, it's and this was my first summer with it, but I was so busy. We only got out on it 4 times this year.
Yeah.
So
That's what it sounds like boat life. Like, it's not easy to get out on the boat unless it's like your fishing boat.
yeah, well, when you have other things, we
Yeah,
have
if you're a busy person.
we have a pool
Yeah.
as well, but
Sure.
and
Can't put the boat in the pool.
No, it's a weather, it's a weather thing, and I don't have
Yeah,
it sitting at a marina. It sits in my driveway on the trailer.
Right.
Because the boat I had before was a Baja, but it was a little shorter, and we just loved towing it around and dropping it in
Wherever you could.
wherever we wanted.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that's a great idea.
So the same idea for this, because storing it in a marina, which I had my first boat at a marina, I just found it a huge pain in the ass to always go to that marina, and you only went so far. You know, I didn't really explore the Trent
I see.
with that first boat.
Okay.
And then when I had kids, the boat was useless.
Now, I have my boating license. I did a show a few years ago, and we had lots of boats. So I thought, just in case, I might as well get a boat. I don't even know how to turn a boat on.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there's a key and you turn it and whatever, but I'm not a boat guy to drive them. Is my boat license the same as your boat license?
It is. And
Because that's crazy.
Is it as crazy as, as it sounds?
If you have a 10-foot little aluminum skiff and you got that motor with that arm on it behind you,
Yeah.
it's a little different than riding what he's riding.
yeah.
Yeah, like and I mean, I don't imagine that the guy driving a cruise ship has got the same shit.
No, they go. Yeah, they go.
That's a
through
whole other
lot
ballgame.
more, but-
Yeah.
But honestly, I could buy a 50-foot boat and
Yeah,
not
no
have
problem.
to change anything.
Well, so what I found fascinating is when I'm doing my course on one computer,
Yeah.
I have the answers coming up on 2 others.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So,
that's what most people do.
I'm sure it's an open book thing.
yeah.
But what I didn't realize, and I'm still flabbergasted by this, is that there's street signs in the water. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not street signs necessarily, but there's all sorts of stuff. There's floats and their colors and their shapes and squiggles. And if the squiggle's on the top, it means something. But if the squiggle's on the bottom and the top is solid, it's another thing. It gets mind-blowing how much you have to remember as a boater out there if you're going to do it right. But what I don't understand is how they can... Well, I guess it's like, if they give me my driver's license, I can either drive a Volkswagen or a great big Lamborghini.
Lamborghini
With the
is
same
probably
license.
small.
Yeah, but that's true. But it's... Well, I was thinking...
An old Fleetwood Cadillac.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that's the same. Anyway.
I'll
I'll edit all that out.
No, honestly, in my opinion, the pleasure craft license is a start, but it's a joke.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a joke.
It was a money grab.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't give you the ability to drive a big boat at all.
Well, I got my license on a computer looking at 2 other computers,
Yes, and that's what everybody does.
but I've still not driven a boat. But I have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no right jumping in a boat with people in it.
How often have you been on the water and seen this guy shouldn't be?
God. It's how many times you've been on the road and think these people shouldn't be on the road, you know?
Well, I've been in a kayak and literally thought to myself, if there was a boat coming toward me, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Sit
On
still.
just a kayak.
Sit still.
Hope for the best.
Fuck.
Sit still, and they're supposed to go around you, because if you start trying to guess what they're going to do, you're going to lose.
But then this guy's had his boat license for 3 days.
Yeah. Hopefully he sees you.
Hopefully he knows how to get around.
You know, it's
Crazy.
It is. It's pretty.
It's interesting.
Yeah, you can YouTube boat fails. Like,
I do.
And people, people
They're
at the
the best.
marinas putting their boats in the water. I mean, I had a boat fail, but it's a common one. I forgot to put my plug in, my transom plug,
Right.
in Kingston. Put it in the water.
And it's filling up with water.
It's filling up with water, unbeknownst to Tanya, and I pull up the ramp and I see the plug sitting in my thing, and I was like, oh my God! I reverse it, and I jump out screaming, get like so. Go out, hook it up, pull it out of the water on the trailer, and before it sank. I mean, it wasn't sinking that fast, but I could not believe how much water was in the transom so quick.
Wow.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So I don't do that ever again. One time and one time only. So I put the plug in before I leave the driveway.
Man.
That's crazy. We have plugs in the kayaks too. Just leave, leave them in.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave them right there where they are.
So you became a SWAT cop.
Yeah. So January 1st, 2000, I got on the team, and
Now, was it a busy area, Durham? Like, I know that, I can't even preface my statement. Was it a busy area?
yes. yes and no, I guess. If you compare it to Toronto, say, it was busy on the road for sure. The tactical team had just become a hostage rescue team qualified, which is, you have to have certain things in order to become, there's 3 levels of SWAT teams in Ontario. And that's a containment team, a tactical team, and a hostage rescue team. Hostage rescue team is the highest level. You have to have a certain number of people on your team, a certain number of equipment, and training hours and that. And it's all set down in the policing standards.
Okay. So what does a containment team do?
They basically contain an armed barricade person or something, a more volatile situation than just uniform can handle.
But
So
they're not going in.
they're not supposed to go in.
Okay.
No. And they have the better weapons. If it comes to that, if people come out shooting, it's basically to contain the problem within that particular location.
Okay.
Waiting for another team that's got more training to come,
Who would then go in?
potentially.
Okay.
But this is also where it becomes what they call a protracted incident, where you start getting the negotiators involved.
Right.
And if they come out and surrender to the containment team, then that's what happens. If they don't, then they need to call a tactical team. And
I
then
see.
if hostages are involved, a hostage rescue team is called right away.
Interesting.
So we were under contract to several other jurisdictions to provide hostage rescue and tactical
So
capabilities.
like let's say Waterloo or the Guelph area or something like that. Do they have?
Yes, they have their own.
They have their own.
Yeah,
Okay.
and their hostage rescue as well.
But there
Okay.
was communities around you that didn't.
Yes, Peterborough, for instance, has a tactical team,
Okay.
but they're a
Okay.
very busy team. And
Why?
they have gone in. Drugs.
Oh, okay.
Drugs is a big thing.
Like serving warrants?
They will, yeah. Technically, maybe not supposed to.
Okay.
But they are trained well. And when I was on the team, we trained them as well a lot. And we had a really good relationship with Peterborough, with their tactical team. And they've seen a lot of shit. Those guys.
Yeah, that's the last thing I would have heard,
Oh, yeah. Well,
or I thought I would have heard.
you asked if it was busy. So in 2000, when I started,
Yeah.
it wasn't very busy. We really didn't serve many warrants. They didn't want to use us. There was this mindset of not using a sledgehammer to swat a fly.
Right.
And that was a quote from, an investigator. But that's really not the matter. It's why wouldn't you use everything you got to make it safe as quick as possible?
Yeah, especially if you didn't know what you were facing when you got there.
Right. So it took us time to change that mindset from some units. And then we just got busier and busier and busier every month, every year. It just went through the roof. And it's funny talking about busy because we used to do community days where, all the different units would have displays
Right.
out in front of a division. And the tactical team was a big, draw sort of thing. So as a new guy on the team, I was one of the guys that had to go to these community days and stand behind the table with all our weapons laid out.
And answer stupid questions
and
like
answer-
being on a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, no shit.
No. But we got a lot of stupid questions. But people would come up and say, so are these things you've seized? And we'd say, no, these are the weapons we use in our day-to-day. And they're like, oh my God, we don't have anything like that in Durham, any need for this in Durham. And it's like, okay. And they'd say, are you from Toronto? Like they'd think we were the Toronto ETF. And, I'd turn and show the shoulder flash and say, no, we're here in Durham. And I said, most of the stuff that we do happens while you're sleeping.
Flash the camera
Well,
with
you're
that if you can.
Well,
Is that available to?
Oh, no. I meant
Oh, I
just
see.
the
I
shoulder
see
flash.
a patch.
that's
The patch.
That's
Yeah.
that's one of my tattoos.
Sorry. No, I just thought maybe that.
No, I
had it on.
never got I never
My
got a
bad.
tattoo of my police department or tactical team on my body.
Okay.
But see, I understand the question that person was asking, because as I sit here as a civilian, and I've said this many, many times, when I'm at work and I'm working with the bomb squad guys, and I ask them, "Are you busy?" and they say, "Yes." Yeah. I'm going, "Whoa!" Like,
Yeah.
like it's really disconcerting as a citizen to know that those guys, you guys, are out there busting your ass every day, busy with bad guys. It's crazy.
It is, and it's it's good and bad that people don't know,
Right.
because they are sort of coddled into feeling like
Safe.
nothing goes on all the time, and then when there's a story about a bad cop story, then they're disgusted in police, but they don't know. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be disgusted in bad cops,
Right.
because I hate that. It paints us all with the same brush,
Right.
and that's not the case. Like, if you have a bad IBM employee, are all IBM employees bad? No.
Right.
But that's funny
makes
because
sense.
people they experience that. They call IBM for the first time. They get a bad experience, and now it's just IBM sucks.
Yeah,
for
that's
everything,
true.
yeah,
right?
That's fair. Yeah.
To some degree, that's how people seem to think.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate, because if you're like, let's face it, there's lots of people that don't like their job. And then they do their company,
true.
their employer, such a disservice by being the
Absolutely.
first face or voice of that company.
True.
So, but yeah, we exploded, like, as far over the years. Like, I honestly, I mean, I was in there for 17 years, minus the 9 months I had to come out when I got my first promotion. And there are over 1,000 operations.
A year.
Sorry, not a year, that I did.
Okay.
So if there's 365 days in a year,
Yeah.
there were some years where I counted the calls we did, which were actual tactical calls, between warrants and other things, high risk incidents, over 200.
Wow.
Man.
So, that's not one a day.
So now what define what a high risk incident is.
Suicidal person,
Okay.
armed and barricade, and other armed person calls, somebody with a knife, somebody with a gun, a domestic dispute with violence.
Sure.
Those are situations where you do need a lot of the time a higher level of training and a higher degree of I'll call them weapons, but different things at your disposal. Knock on wood, we never, in my time never took a life.
Okay.
And I, now that I've said that,
Yeah.
but it's just, and that's not a knock against teams that have. It's just dealing
the
with
job.
the shit you're dealt with.
100%.
And you don't ask for it.
But I
It
mean, the
just
ultimate
happens.
goal really is that no life needs to be taken.
The successful conclusion, of every event where everybody goes home,
Absolutely.
or to a hospital, or, like the subject,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Get them the help that they need.
Until it gets to the point where you can't.
Yeah.
And then that
Yeah.
too then is a successful operation, because
Absolutely. There's that saying, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
absolutely.
Big time.
And people, you've heard it, everybody's heard it, right? Like armchair quarterbacks. A cop's got a fraction of a second, like literally a fraction of a second, to make a decision, a life and death decision. And they will be scrutinized over days and weeks and months and everything.
I'm sure it's destroyed careers.
Absolutely. yeah, that would send me off on another tangent. One of your previous guests talking about his career, I could tell what he did really had a bad effect on him.
Right.
So much so he quit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, and I could tell it still affects him to this day.
it does.
It does.
For
Yeah.
sure. You know, and I can't imagine. And I came on around sort of that same time. So I know what he's talking about. I also figured out the police department.
Sure, of course, everybody.
That was easy. But you know, there is, and there were a lot of cops, you know, that came up much earlier. Like I was trained by guys that had been on for 10 or 15 years before me. So policing was done differently then, you know,
Totally.
as when I was a young cop, different than when I was an older cop.
Yeah, a buddy of mine was a sergeant in, not a buddy of mine, the father of a buddy of mine, years in the 60s, I guess, or maybe the 70s, in London. And he told me, he said back then, if he saw somebody he didn't like uptown, he would just walk up to him, hit him, and ask him why he's up there.
Jeez.
Like,
Times are different.
Yeah, and not good. You know, some of the old ways of policing, do I think they're going to come back? Not in, you know, not entirely, but the pendulum has swung so far to the right, I guess, that it has to come back at some point or it's going to be total chaos.
I had a conversation the other day with some friends who work in, I guess, the legal system, justice system, and they assured me there's no such thing as a justice system in Canada.
I give you a story. When I was in plainclothes unit, there was house parties back then were huge, and flyer parties. You remember that? Like
Yeah.
the word would go out.
Yeah, totally.
You know, somebody's having a party, and you know there'd be 300 people there.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
So there was a party at one place, and that exact thing happened. And a guy that wasn't well liked, I guess, showed up to this party, and they threw him in the pool at this affluent family's home, and the parents were away. So it was a teenage son having the party. Anyway, they were throwing beer bottles at him and cans and that in the pool, like stopping him from getting out of the pool. And at one point, when he did get to the side, somebody put their foot on him and kept pushing him down and keeping him from getting out of the pool to the point where he almost drowned. They pulled him out when he could no longer
Hold himself
tread
above the
hold
water.
himself above water. And he managed to get his way out of there. And he made a police report.
Come on a little closer.
Sorry. He made a police report, and it came to my unit, and I was investigating it. And I laid charges, you know, and they were very serious charges.
On how many people do you lay charges?
Well, I laid charges on the guy holding the party was one of them.
Yeah.
And I think he was really the only one. I think there was only one that I could actually have enough evidence on to charge. There were others involved, 100%, but nobody that I could have enough evidence to convict on. This one was locked, and I never even got a call to court to testify. And I was watching that one because it was probably the most serious charges I had ever laid up to that point. And under the criminal code, like we're talking jail time more than 5 years.
Jesus.
And I never got called to court. And I kept looking into it. And then I see that it was not thrown out. It was, there was like basically a peace bond entered into. And it wasn't on the victim saying like withdrawing or recanting his story. It was the Crown attorney wheeling and dealing for
An affluent father.
a win, but not a win in my opinion.
Okay.
And I have no idea why. I never spoke to that Crown attorney. I was just, I think I did make a phone call, but never got a return phone call. You know, and not that my talking to them was going to change anything, because what was done was done.
Right.
But they essentially let it go. Like, so
that's got to happen so much.
Oh, yeah, it does. And
Well,
that's why cops are so disgruntled a lot with the justice system. It's a revolving door, right? We see the same offenders over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, another friend of mine worked for his father's construction company. He became a cop, was really excited about becoming a cop, and then 3 years into being a cop, quit, went back to his construction company because of that very fact, that he was arresting the same guys on a weekly basis and felt he wasn't being of value, wasn't doing anything.
And that's unfortunate, because he was probably a good cop, you know, but you can't let that, you can't take that home with you every day. It's like a lot of the stuff we see or saw. If you take it home with it, it will kill you. It will burn you up from inside.
Well, but what satisfies you?
Putting them in custody.
And-
After that,
okay.
it's not my issue. I've done everything I can do, you know, the right way.
Yeah, that's true.
And I've put them in jail, even if it's for the night. You know, you stop that offense, just stop the continuation of the offense type of thing. And that is and then I go home, and I don't live it. I don't, you know, I've seen a lot of death, a lot of, you know, people can be fucked up, you know, and dealing with a lot of demons. And I'm amazed at what the human mind is capable of as far as doing harm to yourself or others. It fascinates me, but it concerns me as well.
Right.
But if I take it home with me,
Sure.
you know, I'll remember. You don't forget. I mean, I forgot a lot. I forgot more stories than I remember.
But that stress,
for sure,
it plays on different people different ways.
Yes.
It depends on your physical and mental makeup all your life kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. And debriefing is a huge part of things. And I have a buddy that was never debriefed on an incident, and I'm certain it had a huge effect on him. You talk to him and he'll say no, but I've known him very well for many, many years, and I've watched how his life has unfolded. And he's still a very happy-go-lucky guy. I've just seen it in other ways, and I'm sure it's had an impact on him.
What happens in the debriefing process?
You go through what each person did. Like as far as a team goes, we would sit around our table like this, and everybody had a number assigned to them. So it was like Alpha 1, Alpha 2, Alpha 3, or, you know, that sort of thing. And that's for the purposes of the lineup and your position in the lineup and your job, what you were assigned to do. So you would start with usually the containment guys, and they would say what they did and saw or what they fucked up on.
Right.
And then you would start with the entry team. And starting with the entry team, you would say what you did. And it was, you know, some debriefs got like, oh, I did this and I did that. And it was like, you know, here, let me pat you on the back. And that's not what a debrief was for, right?
Totally.
The debrief was for what could you do better? What would, you know, and owning up to mistakes. And if you didn't own up to something that you fucked up on, and the guy after you saw that you fucked up, there was problems. Because not owning up to your screw ups, it's you know, it's cause for distrust.
So in some regard, the debriefing is each individual maybe having an opportunity to talk out any issues that they might be having.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if there's further issues, you know, that they're personally going through, there's tons of help that you can get. There's tons of assistance you can get. You still have to access it.
But there was a time for coppers that they wouldn't come forward.
Oh God,
I'm a man and I'm going to take this.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it home and have a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
and that causes issues.
Yeah.
Has it changed to some degree? Like,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
hugely. And some people abuse that, where they'll use an incident that somebody else was involved in and not themselves. Can I say for certain that they weren't affected? No, because I'm not in their brains.
oh, that's interesting.
But I've known people that were not working when an incident went down, but it was their shift that was working. And
they claim to have been affected by that?
Yes. Yeah.
Fascinating.
What for? Why?
To get
Just to
time
get
off
the
work.
You
okay.
can't help but believe that it's to get time off work, to get some other position within the police department where you're earning $100,000 and not doing
anything.
Or doing something that a civilian could do at a much lower salary.
How many guys get to like your level though and actually want that time and stuff? I mean, I feel like you got to do a lot of work just to get to this level. What's the sense in?
Yeah, that never happened with guys from my team.
Okay.
That happened with like some people in uniform.
Yeah, that's
okay.
sort of, that
and
makes more sense.
yeah, and maybe it's happened with guys or girls that were on.
Yeah, we're certainly not dissing anybody that
No.
it happens to.
No,
Of course not.
and nobody knows for sure because you're not inside the person's head.
But by the same token, there are millions of civilians out there that are scamming
Oh.
insurance companies. I have a friend who's a private investigator, and that's almost exclusively what he deals with.
Oh yeah,
Is
yeah.
insurance fraud.
I forget
Crazy.
what TV show it was. It might have been an Oprah show or something where they were in a city in the States and they faked a transit bus accident, and they showed people on the sidewalk running and jumping on to that
man.
bus
Oh man.
after the collision. It was a totally fabricated collision. So actors on the bus
Fascinating.
claiming hurt, and it showed people jumping, and the driver opened the both doors because in an accident that's what they're supposed to do, and it showed people from the street jumping onto the bus and then claiming injuries.
Hey,
Wow.
did it work?
Yeah.
Probably. And
We could do that.
there was a really
Let's
bad
do it.
incident with the TTC subway, a fire, and it happened here. And the
that's
only
crazy.
reason they caught a number of the people was because they kept out what direction the subway was going, and so that everybody that was putting in a claim was interviewed, and people screwed up. The fraudsters screwed up the direction. They just guessed.
God.
It was I was on the southbound blah blah blah, and it was the northbound train that caught fire or whatever. So
Ridiculous.
Man, there must be so much silly shit. I mean, I watch YouTube videos of people like pouring an oil or something on a floor in a grocery store and then pretending to slip on this shit.
oh god, it's
And that is really the most hilarious, embarrassing.
yeah.
It's embarrassing as hell. It's got to be for these people.
The world of lawsuits has come from the States, and has moved to Canada for sure. It's
Ridiculous.
But as far as getting back to the tactical team, you just it's a real team, and as you saw in the TV show in Mayor of Kingstown,
Yeah.
we tried to bring it to that level.
Do you guys ever
And-
stand on stairs together and just blast through walls?
Yep.
Right on. Okay.
Yeah, that was
That was episode 3, right?
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that was the bad guys blasted through the walls. So I was fortunate enough to be a bomb technician as well. So with that, I got to go on courses for explosive forced entry, and I became a senior bomb tech and advanced explosive forced entry technician. And we got to blow through walls and blow through doors and windows and things like that. It's
blowing shit up's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. It's, how can you have a bad day at work when you're shooting guns or blowing up stuff?
Totally. Sounds like the stunt world.
Yeah,
Hanging out with your special effects guys, blowing
Yeah,
stuff
man.
up.
exactly.
And I did. I think I think I mentioned this to Shawnee as well, but and Adam maybe. But I mean, it was. It's incredible being on a team with guys like you. I work with stunt guys all the time, and our industry is awesome, and I love everyone I get to work with. But there is a level of competition, and there's other things that go into it. And when you guys came out, and I got to train with you guys, the constant degree of like brotherhood is like next level. And the fact that we've managed to have some, like, we've become really close friends in a short amount of time. And I don't know. I don't have that with anybody really in my industry. It's amazing. It's amazing. You guys are incredible. And I imagine that when you're on the streets and you're doing the real thing, that if you didn't have that, it just wouldn't work.
100%.
There's no way.
It was so great to have a few people that hadn't experienced it, like yourself and Derwin.
Right.
And Nolan's a reservist.
Yeah.
So he's had some of the training in that, but not to that level.
Mm-hmm.
Adam's had a lot more, so it was really great to be able to, Adam was kind of the lead trainer, and shout out to Adam. He was, because, I had my reservations, because military and police do things differently for sure, because you're operating in a different theater.
Sure.
But Adam's training was next level within the military. So he was bang on. And that was great to see. So, because I knew Sean, and I knew Gord, and I knew Casey, would be on the same page as me, sort of thing, or I would be on the same page as them. It was a matter of getting everybody on the same page.
And it was good. I mean, Adam did a nice job, and he also, if you guys spoke up and said, in the city we kind of do it like this or whatever, he was pretty fluid with you guys.
100%. We definitely needed somebody to be the sort of the LI, the lead instructor.
Right.
But yeah, Adam deferred when he knew it. There were no egos.
No, he was awesome.
Which was
Absolutely.
awesome. So Adam deferred to me or Sean or Gord, whenever, or even Casey, whenever the time, it was opportune. So it worked.
He taught me a
it
ton of
worked
shit
out
personally.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mayor of Kingstown on Paramount Plus, Hugh Dillon and Taylor Sheridan.
Absolutely.
Everybody should go have a look.
I try to, lots of people ask, what I've been, because they know I've been involved in the television film industry for a number of years.
Right.
So they've asked if I've been doing anything lately. And then I say, I kind of slide in there about last year, and they're like, "Oh, what's that?" And I feel like, you haven't heard of it? Where you been? living in a box? But the unfortunate thing is, so far it's only on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
So more people will get it and that. But a lot of people say, "Yeah, I'm going to check it out," and it's cheap, $5.99 for a month. You could binge watch it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, fuck it.
And cancel.
It's easy.
Easy if you wanted to. So, but it was so much fun.
Yeah, it's great.
And
It was, man.
yeah, you're right about the team thing, because I don't know anything else. My whole career has been teams, essentially, even uniform. You're working with the same people, day in and day out. And I had a permanent partner when I was in uniform on the road. And, we were like twins. We knew what each other was thinking every moment that we went and did something.
So you should.
Totally.
Yeah.
I agree.
And that is, because a lot of people complained about permanent partners. Well, why do they get to be partners, Oh, because you work well together. Maybe you'd have a permanent partner if you weren't such a dick.
So by using the term permanent partner, you're implying that there's partners that are not permanent?
Yeah, like you would get partnered up depending on the shift you were working, like night shift.
Oh.
So you come into work and you're partnered up with this person or that person.
Somebody you may not even be aware. No.
Oh no, you would know them because they were on your shift. They were on your platoon.
Okay.
But you wouldn't necessarily.
They weren't always in the car with you.
They weren't. Yeah, like you weren't with them every night or every shift where you were partnered with somebody. Whereas when I went back to uniform after plainclothes, I was with one guy.
Okay.
For the next 5 years. Except for when he was off or I was off
Right.
on night shift or whatever, then we got somebody else, and we usually gave each other shit for taking the night off. The fuck?
Yeah, you left me
Taking the
alone,
night
man.
off. You left me with this person or that person, But no, it was. It's so team is all I've known, and a lot of people will have their differences of opinion of team. But when you're working with that team, it doesn't matter if you really like them as a person. You
Well, you want to
like
go
them as a
home
teammate.
as much as
You have to
they want to
respect
go
them.
home.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't have their back, then they don't have yours. It kind of has to work that way in order for you to even survive the shift and head home safely and
100%.
get everything done.
100%. Like everybody noticed when you're not busy, you get under each other's skin and you're bitching about this and that. And, it just becomes a bitch fest.
Like an old married couple.
Yeah, exactly. In the office and that you're complaining. But then when you're busy working,
Yeah.
It's like being in a band.
You're
or
glad that
something.
person's there.
yeah, you're glad that person's there. You don't have time to worry about the petty shit. This guy's not cleaning up his area of responsibility or taking care of the vehicles or things like that. But like I said, I was team for the whole time I was there. And so this was just another SWAT team.
So what was it like training? Like, how often were you keeping up, and what kind of stuff were you learning?
My team trained twice a week. One day was supposed to be weapons. The other day was supposed to be tactics. And then if you had a specialty, like if you were a sniper, you did that training with the other snipers.
Okay.
If you were a bomb tech like I was, you went and did your own bomb training on another day.
Okay.
Rappelling, we would rappel as a team, but if you were a rappel master or a rappel instructor like I was, you had to do separate training and maintenance and that of all that stuff. So
I see.
we were one team, whereas Toronto is 6 or 7 teams.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what's one team consist of?
Well, we were 16 guys and 2 supervisors. And then a staff sergeant. So we were a total of 19 at its peak. But you were divided into 2 halves for the purposes of covering shifts. So it'd be 8 and 8.
I see.
But
course.
but for a call, everybody came together. Like, so all 16 of you were doing that call. Even if it was it was a small apartment, you were all going there because you don't know what you're going to encounter when you go through that door.
Okay. So this is 24 hours around the clock?
We're on call. We were on call
Okay.
24/7, 365 days a year. That's why I like to joke and bug Sean because he talks about we were the only full-time, the ETF was the only full-time team in North America, which technically they were. But I always bug him and say, well, you weren't really full-time because at the end of the day, at the end of your shift, you went home. You could get drunk. You could go to the cottage. You could do all that. Whereas I like to joke that we were full-time because your time off was not your own time. You were on call.
Okay.
So you'd go home, start your dinner, and get called out.
Could you do anything? Could you go vacation? What was the deal there?
Yeah, you had to book off call, and we
they would fill your.
No, we would only have so many spots for being off call, and it was 4 at the time. We increased it a bit for sanity's sake.
Yeah.
Because
Wild.
guys were vying for time off all the time. So you booked off call and you went away on vacation.
Okay.
And
for 4 days. And then
Well, no,
eventually
you
5
could,
to 6.
or whatever, yeah, or whatever your vacation was. You
Right,
know,
right,
go
I
to the
see, okay.
Caribbean or whatever. But honestly, you were kind of told when you came on the team that if you had a cottage, be prepared to not be going much. And this was a condition of it was an unwritten rule, a condition of you coming onto the team that you were going to be available. So if you were taking off every time you were on a day off or 2 days off or 4 days off, if you were taking off to your cottage and your cottage was 2 hours or 3 hours away, you were no good to the team.
Yeah.
So we had that rule. You had to be within 2 hours outside the region or an hour outside the region. I was an hour outside the region. So if you could respond from wherever you were and be in the region within an hour, you didn't have to be off call.
Okay.
But otherwise you did. And being on call meant you couldn't drink because you can't show up to a call out
Of course not.
with a couple of beers on your breath.
You can still get paid?
Oh, yeah, we didn't get paid for being on call. We got paid a detective constable wage. So it was 6%, I think. 6% higher than a first class constable.
Right, but while you're on call for those 3 or 4 days,
Yeah.
You're not-
you were on call 24/7, 365.
copy that, but you're not getting paid on the days you're off.
It's not.
Well,
yeah.
you were salary.
Okay.
So
Oh,
you
I
got-
see.
you-
All right.
Yeah, we
All
were
right.
salary. So you there was no extra pay of any
You were just
kind.
paid for being that guy.
Yeah, you
That's-
were paid for being that guy. And you got 6% more than the guy on the road because you were giving up your life, which honestly was not enough.
No.
No. And when I became a sergeant, I got 8% more than a guy on the road for being a sergeant, but I only got 2% more than the guys on the team. So they got 6 and I got 8 for being a supervisor, for taking all the weight of the world on your
Okay.
That's like being a stunt coordinator.
Yeah.
Your performers are getting paid way more,
Yeah.
and you're taking all the garbage.
No, it's true, and it's messed up. But the union or association, they have to fight for the best of what's best for everybody, not what's best for 16 guys or girls.
Sure.
So that's how it goes.
Do you feel that? I don't know. We all need you. Do you feel that the higher ups making decisions to pay you guys and all this stuff? Do you feel like they care? Do you feel like they are doing the right, doing everything they can?
When you get to a certain level in policing, you're a politician. However, there are some that don't forget where they came from. And the good thing about Durham for a long time was that all the higher ups had been on the tactical team,
Oh, wow.
right up to the chief.
Oh,
who
damn.
Who was my first team leader at the time. He's not the chief anymore. He's retired. But since he was my team leader and team sergeant for a while, I got to listen to him, how he thought about management. And he was a very gruff, in your face, demanding the best. And he was a very good mentor. And I liked his philosophies and his way of being a team leader. Like didn't take any shit, and he expected the best. And then when he became the chief and I got promoted, I had my 15-minute conversation with him of what do you want me to do? And I reminded him of a report and a study he put in when he was a team sergeant on tenure, on getting guys out. And it was kind of like a little dig, but because they were trying to push guys out after 10 years for rotation to get,
New blood in.
Fresh.
Honestly, sometimes it's like Little League. It's like everybody needs a turn at bat. No, they don't. Do you know how many thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars they spent on just me
In training.
in training and courses, extra courses? I went all over.
Yeah.
the
Why
States.
wouldn't they want
They make this
to
massive,
hold you for as long as possible?
a massive investment.
because
just to get rid of you.
Yeah. Partially because they want you to be promoted, or they want you to get yourself promoted so that you can transfer these leadership skills to other people.
Would it be a case of funding? Like,
No.
we won't get any more funding for this if we don't
Nope.
need to train anybody.
No,
Okay.
no. Budgets were budgets, and you had to improve your budget every year.
Yeah.
And we did have at one period of time a high-ranking inspector, or was he a superintendent? I can't remember, where he wanted to move people out, just to move people out to get younger, fresh blood in
Hotter
there.
looking cops.
And it backfired on him huge with one incident, and I loved it because they used a term, and culling the herd.
Oh, geez.
And the guy who was the most senior on the team at the time took that very offensively because he was in fantastic shape. And they were basically like, well, you're getting old and lame there. I won't say his name, but he was like, oh, fuck you. I'm taking this to the top, as far as fighting it.
Sure.
And
Wow.
he kept his spot on the team, because of that. Human rights. Like, I mean, there comes a time where you have to say, that's bullshit. You want to move me out just because you think I'm too old?
But when they're going through human rights and all this other, obviously it's political. They don't know what you're doing. They don't know what you feel when you're out there.
No.
They don't know
No.
anything about any of this.
No.
And you must go, what the fuck? You know nothing. You have no idea what you're talking about.
That was the problem with having people in certain positions of power that knew nothing about the team. So on the other flip side of the coin, having people in power that had come from the team made my career on the team very easy.
Yeah, that just makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and I don't mind saying it. I was well respected by the higher ups, especially because they had come from the team, and I had a good reputation.
Stop being so cocky. Okay.
So I was given a wide breadth.
Yeah.
And they believed, and besides, I didn't bullshit the system or try to manipulate it. I was cut and dry. We need this, we need that. Here's why we need this. Here's why we need that. This makes sense. This doesn't make sense. And, I got in a lot of shit, but tongue lashing shit. Like basically,
totally.
Who the fuck is Floody to, say that or whatever? Well, I'm sorry. It is what it is.
Yeah, you were out here once. Pay attention.
Yeah. Like when we got our armored vehicle, this was a good one. They wanted to paint it white and put decaling all over it.
What?
Oh yeah.
Like M&M's, get some sponsors.
STP.
See you running down.
The Durham Regional Police decaling is like chevrons or like reflective arrows. The whole side of the vehicles, police front and back, the Durham Regional Police crest, big and huge.
It'll look good at night.
And we wanted this thing. It was donated to us from a company in London. We had to buy it for $1, but they donated it to us. It was an armored vehicle, a light armored vehicle. And, everybody was up in arms about why do the police need a military vehicle? Well, it wasn't about going to war.
It's not in the Durham region.
Yeah.
What?
It was about safety. It was
Sure.
about officer safety. And we used that thing, and it was fantastic. And we used it in great ways. Like, we didn't drive over houses and things like that people kind of thought. But anyway, I could go on about
What is
I
wrong
could go on about stories
people?
about people complaining that we had this thing.
Right.
Oh, I saw them at Tim Hortons with that thing. Oh, I'm sorry. They're human. They want a coffee.
Yeah.
They have to drive it. This thing had to be driven, so that the engine worked.
Totally.
So that was part of it. It kept the batteries charged, that whole 9 yards, and people would complain about cops going to the coffee shop. Well, are they not allowed to have a coffee because they're driving this thing? You don't want to see it because you don't want to believe it's out there.
I did an episode of the TV series Rescue 911
Yeah.
about a copper dog that got shot. And I was playing the bad guy that shot the copper dog.
I played the dog.
Yeah, and he did a good job.
Yeah.
But anyway, we worked all night, and the real Hamilton tactical team was there to take me down.
Right.
And God, it was like 7:45 in the morning. I was wrapped, and I walk out from behind the house, and it's in a really nice area. And there's this Hamilton SWAT armored vehicle sitting in the middle of the road, not against the curb, in the middle of the road. It was kind of just sitting there.
Yeah.
And this little door opens up and goes, "Randy, you want a beer?"
Really?
I said, "Yeah." And I jumped in the car. I'm sitting in the tactical car with 3 other coppers, drinking a beer in the morning at 7:45. It was awesome.
Dave's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Now you know this happens. Ah, shit.
Well, a lot of your guests have said that cops are human too.
100%.
So yeah, and obviously those guys weren't working.
No,
You know,
they
like,
were off.
You know, but people are gonna, no matter what, people are gonna judge.
Totally.
You know, for being human. But yeah, so I got in trouble because they wanted to paint this thing white, and I freaked out and wrote a letter, and I bypassed my supervisor, which was wrong, and wrote the letter to the inspector and the superintendent, basically a few people, so that I wasn't having a pissing match, so that more than one person knew that I had written this. And I said what a stupid thing that is to do. We've got this vehicle. It's supposed to be, somewhat surreptitious. You know, it's not a patrol vehicle.
Totally.
So, I complained that they were going to paint it white and decal it up. And I got in a lot of shit for that. They wanted me to write my staff sergeant wanted me to write a letter of apology. And I said, no, I won't. I said, I'll apologize for the format in which I did it, but not for why I was doing it. And then they said, okay, we're going to paint it gray, like a medium gray. So, I mean, I didn't have a choice. It wasn't, hey, Dave, are you okay with this color?
Right.
Yeah. But I was better with that. But they were still going to do the decaling. And I said, this is insanity. And I said, you want to put a bright reflective decal on the door, where if one of the officers inside gets out of that door, it's already a target
Right.
for somebody in the dark, because there's always light,
Sure.
bouncing off this thing. So
Yeah.
so they went with subdued, and they didn't put the chevrons down the whole side. So little battles I won,
Jeez, man.
So I was going to ask you what their rationale was for the white.
because in policing, it's all about visibility.
Not at night with you guys.
No, exactly. But for the politicians, and that sometimes includes chiefs and deputy chiefs, they want to appear as though there's more police out there than there really are. And if you have ever driven in Toronto, I don't know if they still have it, but their parking control officers, so bylaw officers, drove vehicles that were marked up with all the Toronto police decaling. There was only wording on the side at the back that said parking enforcement.
Oh, interesting.
So
Just to appear thicker.
to appear, yeah. So you see this parking, like lots of bylaw people, parking enforcement driving around in what I would call marked vehicles. It may make a certain amount of public feel safer, and people would flag them down because they wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah.
They just see the decaling and it's a Toronto police officer, but it's not. So now flip the coin and put yourself in the position of a bandit that's just done something really bad, runs out onto the street or whatever to make his escape or her escape, and they see a marked vehicle. That's a target.
Yeah.
I took a marked vehicle, brand new police car. Our chief let my buddy and I take it to Indianapolis, Indiana, for the World Police Fire Games back in I don't know, whatever, 1998 or something, and that was great. What a great chief for giving us this marked vehicle. And so here we are driving down through the States in a marked police car, no
From
gun,
Canada.
no gun.
Well, true.
No gun. We're going to the gas stations, and do you know how many times people came up to us asking us for information and direction because they don't look. They're not like,
They don't read the
where's
car.
Durham Regional Police, or see anything about Canada on it or anything like that. Now, it didn't say anything about Canada, but they just see a police car.
Yeah, Ontario
So-
license plate.
Yeah. So they're going to do the same with a parking enforcement car.
Sure.
They're just going to see police decals, and that's it. I need help. You're the one that's going to help me. Or I'm trying to get away, and you're in between me and freedom. I'm going to shoot you. Now, has it happened in Toronto? I don't know, because I don't watch the news anymore, but I'm sure there's a lot of parking enforcement officers that have been assaulted, for sure. I mean, but that's assaulted because they're giving tickets.
It's an interesting perspective that they mark up the parking enforcement trucks, wagons, whatever you call these little things that they drive around in. But to the public, they're everywhere. So it looks like the cops are everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
nobody will admit that it's to make it appear as though there's more cops out there. Nobody will admit that. They'll just say it's so that they can, park where they need to park. Well, who else is going to ticket or tow a parking enforcement car, whether it's a plain blue one?
That's true. That's true. I mean, does it, if it appears that way, does that also mean that the criminal thinks the same thing? Wow, there's a lot of cops out here.
Like it's almost like a deterrent.
Yeah, like a deterrent.
100%. I say 100%, but I'm sure that,
That works. to some
you're not,
degree,
if you're doing something, if you're about to
Steal the bicycle, you're not going to take it because of that truck there.
yeah, or do a drug deal,
Right.
And you see a parking enforcement car, you're not looking to see that. Oh, it's only parking enforcement. Yeah, here, let's still deal.
Right.
They're gonna go out of here, So for sure, it is a deterrent and works. But
That's interesting.
it's window dressing.
Yeah.
Hire more cops, but everybody wants to slash budgets.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's getting kind of hard out there because we work with a lot of young coppers, and one of my first questions in a conversation is, "What made you do this? Like, are you sticking around? Like, why did you do this?" It's just getting worse out there for.
Yeah.
So luckily, one of the jobs I do now is I'm a consultant for my old police department, and I do backgrounds. So I get to, when somebody gets to the final stage of hiring, and it's not just police officers, it's anybody that applies to the police department. They have to go through a background check.
Sure.
So I'm like that sort of final stage, and I go through their background. And I applied for that position because I loved my job. I absolutely loved my job, and I want to see good people get hired. And I take it very personally. So I'm involved in hiring new cops.
To this day.
I've been doing it I've been retired for 5.5 years, and I started it about a year after.
Oh, wow.
So I've been doing it about 4.5 years. And
Very cool.
How political is that? Like, are they saying, we need this and we need that to give variety and diversity to the... I mean, there must be some of that, eh?
I can honestly say that first of all, in my position, don't have a hand in whose file I get, but I do know they are honestly going after the best person for the job.
Good.
And which is amazing, because we've all heard those stories of, like if you're a white male, you're not getting hired.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not true, at least in Durham. Yes, I would say that they want as much diversity, and I don't disagree with that.
As long as
possible,
whoever gets the job can do the job.
Right. They still have to pass all the same tests.
Sure.
So if there is a department out there where there's a higher up saying, make sure this person gets on, it's not the one I work for.
Copy.
We're putting through quality people. And my job is to make sure that someone doesn't slip through the cracks like we've had. So I take it very personally and I follow some of I call them mine, because I do
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I take like a little fatherhood and ownership of them, and I follow them for a bit and I'll email them. How's it going? How's your training going? Like usually through their Elmer. And because I love to hear that they're performing well. I talk to the people in the use of force branch because they're all friends of mine still. I'm still in touch with that side of things. So I get to hear, whether they're doing good or not. And
Yeah, but that's good. That's great.
yeah, I think it is. I think it is for sure. And it keeps me connected, because everything I do now in post-retirement has been related to my career. I didn't plan it that way,
Right.
but it's
Like,
so easy.
even working in the movie business.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started, a good friend of mine, we started supplying special skills extras to the film industry probably 2006, so 16 years ago. We were living together after I got divorced. And we were sitting around thinking, what can we do to make extra money? And we decided we were going to be consultants.
Nice.
Because we were sick of watching TV shows where the cops looked horrible.
Yeah, I think I was a part of a lot of those.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
So then it's funny because a friend of his, my roommate, is a director and a producer, but he was doing a lot of music videos at the time. And he was doing a collaboration between, oh God, I forget their names, a Buffalo DJ. But anyway, him and an artist, a female artist, were doing a collaboration for a song, and it'll come to me while I'm talking. But anyway, he said he talked to my buddy, said, "What can I do for a video?" So my buddy said, "Why don't you do this? What the song sort of is, and why don't we do a hostage rescue?" So we were living at a farmhouse that was another friend of mine's, his girlfriend's uncle. So we were living on this big 100-acre property farmhouse with a big barn, and talk about a shoestring budget. And we set up this music video of us as a tactical team. So we had all our friends. There were about 8 of us, and we made it look like there was a lot more, as you can do.
Yeah.
Went down to big shout out to Charlie Taylor, Mag. Went down to Mag, who we knew from doing pay duties on movie sets and that. But so my buddy went down, Glenn. He went down to Mag to.
I met Glenn. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Went down to Mag and rented the guns and uniforms. And Charlie asked him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, we're making a music video." And he's like, "Oh, cool." And he says, who's doing it? Like, he asked the whole idea of it. And Glenn said, "Well, it's all guys from the tactical team, and we're going to play a tactical team and go rescue this girl." And he's like, "What a great idea." He goes, "Did you ever think about doing that for TV or movies?"
Right.
Glenn's like, "No." But at this time we had been talking about being consultants, but just the two of us, like hire ourselves out. This is wrong. That's good. So Charlie said, "I get asked all the time if I can supply guys that know how to use these guns and be SWAT guys." He says, "Why don't you give me a card and I'll start putting your name out there." And Glenn's like, "Well, we don't have cards." So hence Tactical Films was born.
Okay.
And we never actually made a website. We got the name, but we never made a website. We just did it by word of mouth.
Yeah.
And so we made this music video. It turned out excellent. It's still, you can see it on YouTube.
If
And
you can think of the name.
Yeah, if I could think of the name. But we did this all at the farmhouse in the coldest weekend of the year with the most snow. One of Glenn's buddies, who's a friend of mine too, he was a pyro guy, an FX guy. He actually hung he rappelled outside the CN Tower on for New Year's Eve 2000.
Oh wow.
And hung the fireworks on the CN Tower.
Oh, wow.
So he was a pyro guy, an FX guy. He rigged up his own effects. We made distraction devices with him using black powder and pots. And we just used a body from an empty body that we had, but timing was perfect. I played a sniper as one of my roles in it in the winter. So I'm dressed up in my whites and I'm hunkered down in the snow and you can't see me. I'm totally camouflaged. And I had a spotter with me. So there's this sniper shot where you're looking through sort of
Totally
the
cool,
crosshairs of the scope.
Right.
And he had this little, he just made it, a little pump with a little blood pack. And he had on a toque and he was supposed to be a bad guy guarding. And so I take the shot and he gives this thing a squeeze and his hat blows off and this blood spurts out the back of his hat and he just falls over in the snow. So it was like a great effects, that cost $15.
That's
As
awesome.
opposed to like in the movies where it's cost thousands. And then we did this whole hostage rescue thing. And the other great thing, which you probably don't know about Glenn, he is an amazing, amazing dog guy.
Okay.
Never been a canine, a police canine handler, but training, unbelievable. He had his pet German Shepherd, and he trained it to apprehend in about a day and a half. So we had another friend put a bite sleeve on his arm, and Glenn was a tactical canine guy out in the snow.
Cool.
Spots a bad guy, lets the dog go. His shepherd jumped over the fence, latched onto the guy's arm, and took him down. And
Wow.
He trained his dog to do that in a day and a half.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Like he's good. He's really good. And he runs a volunteer search and rescue team. Probably the biggest, I think, in Ontario.
Like
With
today.
dogs?
Yeah. Well, with everything.
Oh, just with everything. Okay.
They Overt, it's called.
Okay.
Ontario Volunteer Emergency Response Response Team.
But he also has the
Over.
Arwen company, right?
Yeah, he has that too, and he has his own company.
Gee, Glenn's a going concern here.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so let's get Glenn on. Okay, it's over now, Dave.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I won't talk anymore about his company. He's got a tactical kit and clothing company.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do Arwen now, but. Yeah, so we did that. We started it, and Charlie started throwing our names out to casting directors, I guess, and back locations people.
It's great.
And we started getting calls. And
It's how I met you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, that's how MLK's team came together, really.
yeah, and Charlie has been like, he has been phenomenal to me, not just like to tactical films and all that, but to me personally, because he called me up and. So the great story about MLK for me is he called me up and he said, listen, he says, I'm doing this show, Mayor of Kingstown, and Taylor Sheridan's the director. And I'm like, okay, didn't know who Taylor Sheridan was.
Right.
Yeah.
And, he says, I want you to come in and be a model for me. He goes, they're looking for guys built like you. And he goes, I want to showcase my stuff to him and you at the same time. He goes, I think you're exactly what they're looking for. And I had just gotten my actor status about a month ago from doing another movie as a SWAT guy called One Up. Still hasn't come to the screen yet or whatever. But anyway, that was another fun one. But so I went in, wore a bunch of different clothing and guns.
I received those on my email.
Okay, and then and he took pictures. They took
I remember
pictures
that,
of me
yeah.
wearing all this stuff,
Yeah.
and said, "Okay, I'm going to be meeting with the director. I want you there." And I was like, "Sweet, I want to be there." So I let it go, and I didn't hear from Charlie, for a while, and then I prompted him, and he said, "It's going to happen. I'll let you know," and then. And then he called me and he said, it's actually not going to be with Taylor Sheridan. Boo. And then he said, but it's going to be with the stunt coordinator, Randy Butcher. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, so I'm going to introduce you. And so then introduced us by text.
Right.
And again, I'll never forget that first text meeting because I think then we ended up phoning each other.
We did.
Because we were trying to pick a day.
Yeah.
And I had a major leak in my pool at the bottom. So I had to drain my entire in-ground pool. And it was a huge pain in the disc, you know. So the day I'm in the pool with like 6 inches of water in it that was never ending. Like, and if I left the pump, if I turned the pump off, the groundwater came up a couple of feet in my pool. So I was constantly doing this. And I'm texting with your dad, Randy, and I guess, can they see you?
Who?
People watching.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm texting.
You're not the only one we have on TV.
Okay. So I'm texting with, oh, that's right, because I've watched these. So I'm texting with you, and we're trying to sort out a day.
Yeah.
And I'll never, ever forget, you said, the last thing you said, and then we were on the phone, and the last thing you said was, have fun with your pool. And I said, go fuck yourself. Right. Have fun with my pool. And you go, we're going to get along great. And then the day came and you said you're going to bring your son.
Yeah.
Who's going to be doing it. And he was a stuntman. And I was like, okay. You said he was a stuntman actor. And I was like, oh God, what's this going to be like for a SWAT team?
Hey, I thought the same thing.
And, you know, preconceived ideas of somebody that's never done that.
Of course.
And then the first thing you said to me was, well, I can see you've let yourself go.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a minute. But
Yeah. So then we met, and, you know, I didn't know either of you guys from Adam. And, you know, we talked about the union thing, and you said, don't worry, I'll get you in. And I said, well, how do I get in the stunt union? And you said, no, there's no stunt union.
Yeah,
and I said, oh, well, I'm already in the union then. You're like, oh, fucking even better.
Yeah, man.
And then
Absolutely.
from there, it was fucking a match made in heaven. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
it was awesome.
I had the best time.
Oh,
I had the best time. And
I
I
had a better time.
yeah, you think so?
I think I had the best time.
God, the competition in this team is just insane. Now, I've said this before to him. I won't say it to Sean or Gord or anyone else, but I don't know what it is about you, but in my opinion, when you pulled everything you were doing, you were like a tripod, man. Everything is steady as hell. You are the cleanest, best looking. My opinion really doesn't fucking matter here, but
The movement.
dude, you're
We
so
just talked
slick
about this 2 days
in what
ago.
you do.
Yeah.
Now,
thank you.
but
Thank you
I mean,
very much.
you've talked about some of the training you've done, but you know, and then you said earlier, sniper here, you know, this guy here. How does that work? And what have you done?
So it's really a natural sort of draw to certain things. Some guys just love the idea of being training and becoming a sniper. You know,
Right.
that long range shot.
That was a Gordy thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay.
You know, and then other guys want to play with bombs. You know, and
that's where you went.
and that's where I went. But with us, it wasn't an either or. It was in addition to being an operator. So you're an operator first, and you got to get used to the team and understand all that and get all the prerequisite courses. And then if you show an affinity towards something, like being a bomb technician, then it's decided whether, like you go out to some of the training with the guys, and, you know, if they like you in that capacity and you seem to be smart enough,
Right.
then you get selected for the explosive disposal course in Ottawa, which is pretty intense. You're actually building bombs to learn how to, and then you trade them and you set up scenarios and other teams have to deal with your bomb.
Jeez, man.
Inert bombs.
Inert. Well, inert, like, but they would have a live, what we call a squib.
Sure.
Which you know
okay.
what a squib
Yep,
is,
of course,
right?
yeah.
So
Little explosive
there's a
device.
little explosion.
Okay.
So if the team fucks it up, that squib goes off.
Well, that makes sense.
Right? So you learn whether you did it right, because if you just have a fake bomb, you don't, and you
Disarm
disrupt it,
And there's nothing.
and there's nothing to say whether it went off, because you would go up afterwards and see if that squib went off.
Sure.
Like pipe bombs, other mailbox bombs, all sort of all the things that you would typically come in contact with. And you do all that stuff, and what a great course! What another bunch of great guys, mostly all SWAT guys, but some departments like the OPP, most of them were like ident officers that got the bomb course.
What's that mean? What?
They do forensic identification. They're out doing photographs of crime scenes and all that sort of evidence collection, but then they were also bomb technicians.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And it's just to know the details of what they're working with, I guess.
Yes, and they would deal with people would deal with post blast. So
Right.
after a bomb went off
yeah.
somewhere, they know what they're looking for and evidence collection. Where our team actually did start out that way, but then when my original team leader got on, he was a bomb tech as well as a SWAT guy, because we had some that were bomb techs and SWAT guys and some that were just bomb techs and other things. He decided that, and when he became sergeant, he decided that the bomb techs needed to be SWAT guys, so that for explosive forced entry, we didn't need to use somebody that wasn't tactically trained. So it made it all one, which for how busy we were, it was okay. But I do see the use for having some other bomb techs that do other things and don't sort of take away from the numbers, because therein lies the problem. If you have a bomb call and a tactical call going on at the same time,
Right.
you lose your bomb techs to the bomb call, or
Right.
3 of them anyway, which happened, and sometimes we would say, okay, you go to the call, the 2 of us will just deal with this, but it would depend on the type of bomb incident, or perceived bomb incident.
How many teams were there in Durham?
Just one.
How many teams in Toronto?
6 or 7. So that's the thing I was saying. I think you went to the washroom, which I'm going to go soon.
Copy.
I
People
was
don't know
Old
IP.
bastard.
I was telling Andrew that I always joked that we were 24/7, that we were really on the full-time team, because we're on call 24/7. Whereas Toronto, when they finish a shift, they go home and do
Right.
whatever.
Sure.
But a lot of the time they're called in as well, big operations. So
Well, I find it fascinating that if somebody wanted to cause mayhem throughout the city, and there's only 7 teams, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
you could really.
we have a great working I'm no longer with Durham, so
Right.
I always still say we, but you don't lose that.
No.
When you talk about Mayor of Kingstown, I'm sure you still say
No,
we.
Yeah, I
Still,
do.
yeah.
I do to some degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a great working relationship and shared resources agreements between York and Durham, and
Okay.
Toronto and York and Durham, and even Peel. And basically it's a big brotherhood. And if you put the call out, they will come. So Toronto typically had all the biggest operations, like major gang takedowns where they're going to hit, 30, 40 doors. And I was lucky to be involved in so many of the largest joint forces operations in North America for my time on the team. And you'd have every team in Southern Ontario coming into the GTA to execute warrants all at the same time, all over the city. Wow. So you had from everywhere, from Ottawa to Niagara, they'd roll in, we'd have our briefing, and we'd have our briefing early, and then they'd all be staged in different areas across the city. And then at 6 a.m., doors were going in all over the
Right.
city. And people were going into custody. Lots of gangs.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's
But it's also like that top secret stuff.
Absolutely.
Because what you've done now is you've depleted that resource from that community.
Yeah. Yeah. And those guys are going back right away. You know, we were training, my team was training with the JTF2 when Parliament Hill happened. And JTF2 were here for 2 days. And they had to pack up on the second day in the middle of training, and talk about efficiency. Poof, they were gone back to Ottawa.
Wow.
We were Flashpoint. I shot the TV series Flashpoint. We were the first TV show to shoot guns at the Toronto airport at the back part that isn't being used.
Yeah.
But when we were there one day, the JTF2 came in 2 helicopters. And you see these guys all climb out with their bags and walk into the airport. It was actually kind of neat to watch.
Yeah. And get on a plane and go to another country.
Wherever they were going.
Yeah.
Now, what is JTF2?
Joint Task Force 2.
Okay.
There's no Joint Task Force 1.
Okay. But we want people to think there is.
Well,
No, I don't know.
I mean, they're like the SEAL Team 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
Or what,
Now,
right?
is it's military?
Yes. Yeah. It's Canadian military. And, you know, I know a few guys personally, and you put them up against any top tier team in the world. You know?
So is it basically anti-terrorist type stuff that they
Yeah,
do? Or?
yeah,
The
yeah.
big hostage rescue type team, eh?
Anything international. They're involved in Afghanistan and Iraq, in other places that we don't even know about.
Sure.
Operations. They do a lot of pre-deployment operations. You know, the same thing that SEALs would do, or,
Sure.
you know, or the Rangers.
Do they go through a similar training as the SEALs and all that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they train all over the world with with teams. Yeah. Canada is I think people put us down a notch because we're, you know,
Because we talk like this, eh? Yeah.
you know, we're such a nice country.
Right.
And we are, but you know, when it comes to specialties,
Yeah, we can kick some ass.
yeah, 100%. You know, maybe not all of our sports.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the Americans they're just famous. They're just famous in general.
Well, they're
the
more-
Navy SEALs are in every movie, this and that.
Well,
as
yeah,
They're,
well,
more,
right?
they're more
Cells.
boastful.
Yeah,
Yeah, true. They're also most
But we don't have a movie about the JTF2 that I'm aware of.
no, and
We probably shouldn't make one either.
Yeah,
Do it any justice.
I mean, you could watch any special forces movie
Sure.
and just plunk the
name in.
Canadian JTF dude
Sure.
in there, and they're the same thing. You know, and God, like, you know, some of them, how young and how few years, and what they see in those, like, in and out by 24. You know, and have
really?
seen and done shit that
Now, how many guys are on the team? Like,
nobody knows.
Okay.
And that's purposeful.
sure.
I imagine.
I wrote a movie years ago about a hostage taking of the president, the would-be president's son, and I dealt with the Secret Service
Right.
in the writing of the script. And the guy said, "Well, Randy, that's like the Bears giving their playbook to
Yeah.
the other team." And
Yeah.
And I said, "Can you read it and let me know if I'm close?" He read it and said, "You're nowhere near."
Yeah.
Because I had guys everywhere, and they have so many more.
Yeah.
Like, it's fascinating
Yeah.
what we don't see.
Yeah.
Pretty neat.
No, 100%. And it's by design, of course.
Sure. No,
Because
absolutely.
you can't have, you know, that stuff known. And you can't know where they all are based, you know, and
Sure.
where they come from, and, you know, that sort of thing. So,
Wild stuff,
but
man.
yeah, it's for sure they're top tier, 100%.
Was that ever a desire at all in your mind? Something like that?
It,
I mean, you must get so far with your firearms and the things you do, and then go, "Fuck, I kind of wish I could just."
It's funny, later in my tactical career, because we got to do some stuff with the Canadian military. You know, shout out to Paul Wassell. He was
Yeah.
my first sergeant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was my first sergeant. I love to tell him now that I outranked him by the time I left. I told him a couple times we worked together, or more than a couple times we worked together on movies as gun handlers, as armors. And I've said, I don't have to call you boss anymore, but I do when he's
He's
the
a great
lead,
dude.
When he's the
when
boss.
he's the lead.
Yeah, his name's come up on this podcast a couple of times.
Yes,
We
yeah.
loved it, Paul.
So he had an in with the Canadian military, and there's a course called the Pathfinders course. So it's part of their special operations, and these guys go from coast to coast doing portions of this Pathfinders course, and they were doing their what's called E&E, escape and evade portion, sort of in our neck of the woods, and based out of one of our military bases. And for 2 years in a row, we were involved with part of the hunt and catch.
Oh, okay.
So that was very cool. We assaulted a Hercules as it was just coming to a stop on the runway, which was very cool.
How many guys were there?
There had to be at least 20 or 30, or of us or them.
You guys assaulting.
Oh, so there was, at the time there, we only had a team of 12.
Okay.
But we were augmented by some K9 guys and all that. So our job was to take them into custody because they're like an opposing force. And their job was to get away. So the plane comes in, taxis on the runway, the ramp drops down. We go flying across the grass in our vehicles, bouncing. Case of beer almost fell out the side of the van. That was for after. And we race after this thing, and it's taxiing down the runway, and we're driving after it. And the minute it came to a stop, we bail out of the trucks and run up the ramp, and all these military guys are strapped into their jump seats. And they can't do a thing, and we take them down at gunpoint. Of course, all the weapons are empty.
Of course.
And take them into custody, put them face down on the tarmac, and we have the K9 going through, just like salivating, snapping at their face. And K9s can be unpredictable.
If they don't know it's pretend.
Right. So then they get shipped off and put somewhere, and then there's a portion where things are done to them, and then they're as prisoners, and then they are given basically an opportunity to escape, and then we go hunt them down. And there's things that they have to accomplish in this portion of their escape. They have to get from point A to point B without being recaptured, and with nothing on them.
This is
Wow.
This is a blast.
Sounds like fun, man.
So, so then we actually get deployed and go out and track them down with dogs and that, and prevent them from getting, from point A to point B. And we scoop them up, and I think we got all of them both years, and they get taken back into custody and treated like prisoners, so that this is so that if it happens in real
100%.
life, they're going to be subject to this.
Absolutely.
And I'll never forget. So, and we ended up, they took over a barn to sleep in one night. These people weren't involved.
Oh, the people that own the barn.
People that owned the barn had no idea that there were all these military personnel camped out in their barn. And so we were given the heads up as to where they were. And we took them down, and boy, did some of them get in shit, because some of them had taken their boots off to sleep. And in this game, no, you
You have to be ready to go.
you have to be ready to go. Yeah. So there was one guy, and then they all get handcuffed and hooded and stuff, and knelt down. And one guy was wincing in pain, and you could just hear these moans and groans. And if I'm not mistaken, his shoulder was completely separated. But he was,
From the takedown.
from somewhere during
During
his
the run.
during his
Oh,
run.
shit.
He must have fallen somewhere and he did not want this to be known. And eventually, there was no choice. His shoulder was, couple of inches lower than his other shoulder, and he got medicked out of the course. Like so that's it's totally heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because it's not because you gave up.
Yeah,
An injury caused him to flunk out of the course. I'm sure he was back the next year.
Yeah.
But still, to go through all that, it's like
Yeah.
the SEALs when they, ring the bell.
Sure.
And they leave, they're usually back again, I guess. From
Well,
what I
I
understand.
think they regret it right away.
Oh,
As soon as they ding the bell, they're like, fuck, what did I do?
So you'd have to go home and then reapply, right? Kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
You'd still be in the Navy.
yes, yeah. And I can't imagine how it would play with you mentally to live with quitting.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, isn't
When
it
you're
so?
that type of person.
Exactly.
It's be really, really tough, if that's your mindset, and I knew pretty quickly my mindset was to go to tactical. I knew that as opposed to a detective,
Right.
so I lived, ate, and breathed that for my whole time on.
Now, you talk about doing bombs. I don't know if this is something we should even mention on the podcast, but how often are you taking care of bombs?
There's a lot more hoax calls out there
Yeah.
than there are real calls, for sure.
For sure.
And then there's real calls, so how many? Not too many,
Good to know.
Yeah,
Good to know.
Not too many, but
Just knowing there's a couple.
one is too many.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One is too many. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and we even had we had an incident where a guy wanted us to make a deal with the Crown Attorney by turning over explosives, and they were in a garbage can in a park, high explosives.
Oh my God.
And they were put there by somebody in order for this guy to make a deal.
Okay,
This
so they
is all
weren't.
Oh,
contrived.
Yeah. But they were illegally obtained, stolen explosives, but put in a park, where anybody could be. And that garbage can, usually it's the shrapnel that.
Sure.
I've done. I did a search warrant in a storage unit. In regards to a case, that storage unit had so much explosives in it, and if there had been a fire,
What the
some explosives won't go off
Yeah.
with a fire, but some will. But yeah, just like the amount, and a lot of it's stolen from mining companies.
Yeah.
That's usually where it happens.
Crazy.
So you guys, when you discover something like that, it's often tracked right from the source, kind of.
Well, everything's got a number on it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we find out
I see.
where it was stolen and when it was stolen, but it doesn't necessarily lead you to who stole it. Yeah.
Have you had intense calls that something you just really didn't see coming, like something new, something wild?
Bomb or
I don't know. Bomb. Yeah, I don't know.
In general.
God, there are so many that I've truly forgotten more of the, like I said earlier, the ones where people hurt themselves, those are the ones that I don't see coming. Like as into what lengths they go to.
Like attempted suicide or just people hurting themselves?
Yeah, no, suicides.
Okay.
We had one that was unbelievable. I was amazed at how angry this guy was before he killed himself. He destroyed his entire house. He put a hole in every single wall, smashed every appliance with a sledgehammer, chainsawed the furnace, used a sawzall to cut through the furnace and ductwork. Used a chainsaw to cut almost every joist between the basement and the main floor.
He wasn't happy.
Yeah,
Was that a revenge thing?
Yeah, it was a divorce.
Okay, copy.
It was an ugly divorce where,
She wasn't getting a nice house.
yeah. He was leaving, and that's what he was leaving, for them. Yeah, and then killed himself.
Jesus.
but held us at bay, for many, many hours, before we approached the house. And I was lucky enough to be the number one guy. So that's the guy at the front of the line, which I loved that position.
Why is that?
A bit of adrenaline junkie, I guess. You're first through the door.
I see.
You are the one that's on your knee, like for stealth searches. You had a pole mirror and your handgun, and your number two was your lifeline over top of you with a rifle or a submachine gun. And you're the first one mirroring through the door. You go through as a package, so when I say you're the first guy through the door, your number two is like right on you. And we taught some of that when we were doing over top of each other, 2 over 1s.
Totally.
So moving up on this house, and the house had windows and angles facing us, our whole approach. So it was just a horrible feeling. And we knew this guy had a rifle, but got up to the door, and I start mirroring through the door, and I look through where the hinges are, and I can see him sitting at the dining room table. And the first thing I say is contact, and the rest of the team doesn't know what I'm seeing, right? Like, so they're like, oh shit. And I'm like, yeah, he's dead. I used our 9 code, which at the time, because the radios weren't encrypted,
Right.
So I said he's 99, and guys are like, how does he know? He said, because he's got no head.
Yeah. It's a good indication.
Yeah. It took me a second to realize that's what I was looking at, because the first thing you see is this person, and then you realize there's nothing on top of his shoulders. So it was, And then we go in and clear the house, because you don't know if there's anybody else in there, any victims, anything like that. So we still have to handle it all the way through the house, but you're looking at what destruction, and that's where I say, like, about the depths people sink to, but that was a vengeance thing.
Sure.
Where there's the ones that people do it to themselves, and some bizarre stuff.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Actually, Les mentioned on the podcast something about a lady who jumped in front of a subway, ended up in the hospital. They managed to save her life, but she was badly injured. And then when at some point she just walked out of the hospital, went right back to the subway and jumped.
That's very common. Yeah,
that's wild, man. That is sad. And
it's a problem with our healthcare system, for sure, and our being able to deal with people that are suffering mental illness, because they just, they have to get medically assessed first, see whether they should be hospitalized, and then it takes so long to get a psychologist or psychiatrist in to see them, because they're on call, and then if they say all the right things, they're out, and you can't hold them. But does there have to be something better, a better way? Yeah, for sure there does, because these people are in distress, and when they get to that point, they're gonna do it. We had a particular male that our team dealt with probably 4 times trying to commit suicide before he actually was successful, when nobody saw him. The rest of the time was all where people would see him. And that wasn't a cry for help. He was trying to do it. Mm-hmm. He just didn't go. It took him 4 times to realize that he had to go somewhere where nobody would see him do it, and he'd be found afterwards.
Jesus.
I see. Okay.
So,
and is that because maybe he cared about what other people were dealing with?
He didn't want to be stopped.
Okay. I see.
3 of my guys risked their life one night, and they got the Police Officer of the Year award in Ottawa. They got recognized in Ottawa for their heroics. And he was hanging from a TV antenna. Those old.
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy was on the TV antenna with a I think a lace or a rope around his neck. It wasn't going to break. And 2 of them had to climb this thing when he let go and was hanging. and cut him down and bring him to the roof where he started fighting, and then they had to taser him to get him in under control. And then they had to lower him off the roof. Like they totally risked their lives climbing up that TV tower.
Incredibly sad.
That TV tower is not meant to hold, I'd say between the three of them, because that guy was probably 200 plus. And then one of the other guys was around 180 and the other guy was maybe 160, 170. So you're talking close to 500-600 pounds of people on a TV tower. And it was windy because it was stormy.
Crazy.
Yeah. So.
Fuck.
Sorry, it had to be a doubt.
Oh, no. I mean, the thing is, too, is that there's not a lot of people know about this stuff. They don't really know what's going on. And, obviously you lived in another world for a long time where it's almost like you live in the same world, but it's another realm in a way.
Yeah. It's on a different
Something
tier
like
than
that.
most people.
Yeah. You see things that really, people like us just don't see.
Well, my LinkedIn, I think the first line in my LinkedIn says, I've been fortunate enough, or I said, I've seen and done things that 99.9% of the population will never get to see or do or should do.
Yeah.
So as much as I've done some amazing, cool shit, like I've led a blessed life, it's not a silver spoon life. I made everything happen. But I've led a pretty blessed life, and I've seen a lot of broken people and a lot of hurt, but I've done some amazing things, and I don't regret 1 second of it, don't regret it at all, because it's just an incredible world, and, truthfully, I love people. I was never going to sit behind a desk.
Right.
My father taught me that inadvertently.
Right.
Because he was a desk guy. And I just saw how it affected him physically, being behind a desk as an executive. And I was like, fuck that. I want to be out, and I was always a physical guy.
Yeah. You look fairly physical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I really got into working out more. I started in high school, but really, I didn't really understand it as much as I did till I was in my mid to late 30s.
Yeah, but did you worked out as part of the job?
Yes.
To stay in shape, to do what you do best.
Yeah.
And then that kind of grew.
I was always a gym guy.
Yeah.
From the minute I graduated high school. Well, I was working out in high school. I had a buddy that got me working out, and shout out to Paul Reeve, who's in the States now, but he got big. He got big over the course of a summer in like grade 10 or 11, and he played football. So, and then we were buddies, and he got me into working out and blah, blah, blah. And then when I got on the job, I had a gym membership, and I always worked out, but I ate like crap. I ate whatever.
Right.
I ate whatever was out there because I subscribed to that adage of more calories, eat big, lift big type of thing. And I was just always puffy and smooth and thought I looked good and thought I looked big. But now I look back at those pictures and I'm like, I was fat. It's not that I'm not trying to be that, body dysmorphia guy.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I look back at when I got into actual training properly and eating properly and competing, that's when I really learned how to do it.
Sure.
And stay in shape. And then, and I was paid because we had to pass a certain type of physical twice a year to stay on the team. We had an hour a day to work out and an hour for lunch. So we usually combined those 2 hours first thing in the morning, because you didn't really come off the road to eat a lunch,
Right.
In tactical, because the next second you'd be back out for a bad call. So you just did it first thing in the morning. And if you got called out first thing in the morning, then I guess you missed your workout, you know, and that. And you always ate, you know, while you're driving around.
Sure.
So.
So when did you start competing?
1998, I did a before and after magazine competition.
Okay.
I was married at the time, and my wife at the time brought home a magazine, and she showed it to me, and she goes, "You can win this." She goes, "You're so dedicated, you can win this." And it was a transformation competition. So basically, you took a picture of you as you are now,
Right.
in a bathing suit and holding a newspaper so that they could clearly see the date. And then I think you had 3 months, and you had to transform yourself and do another picture
That's kind of fun.
and write an essay
Set a
on
goal.
why you should win this thing. So it was an American magazine, but then they made a Canadian. They had done the transformation one in the U.S., and now this particular year they were doing the Canadian version. So I entered it, and I said, on the condition that you enter it too. Well, she lasted 3 weeks. and I did it. I didn't win. Apparently, though, a few years back, I got sponsored by a supplement company, and the guy that picked me up said, "I was involved in that magazine competition," and he goes, "I remember you."
Oh, cool.
I was like, "You're full of shit," you know, because we're talking more than 20 years later,
Right.
you know, and he says, no, I'm dead serious. I remember you. So I was
Wow.
like, nah, I don't know why, but I know. Because you had to write an essay, too, about why fitness was important to you,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. So, and I wrote it about a sergeant that committed suicide, you know, so.
Well, that's
how
a easy thing to remember.
Yeah. It was pretty shitty. And I was working when he did it. So, and he was a great guy. And his son's on the job now, and his son's an awesome dude, too.
What a shame.
And was this brought on by doing this job?
Which, the bodybuilding?
No, the suicide.
sergeant.
The sergeant.
That I don't know, and I'll never know. I know he was battling demons, or that's what his letter said. You know, and I guess he'd been battling them for a long time. We didn't have a clue, like, working for him. He was an awesome guy with a great disposition. You know, there was nothing about him working with him that said this guy's suffering from something. No, not a clue.
Really? Wow.
But that was my first competition, was this magazine competition. And a buddy, well, he wasn't a buddy then. Somebody put me on to another copper at work who was into bodybuilding and was competing for his pro card. And he became my trainer. So he said, yeah, I'll do it. He didn't want any money for it or anything. He just said, yeah, I'll do it. So I started doing it. And if you know me, I'll do whatever it takes. If you tell me I need to cut this board off and eat it as part of my diet, I'll eat it. If that's what it takes, I will do it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, your discipline's wicked, man.
So but it was early on, but I was, and actually that was 1998. So I was not on the TAC team, you know, so my discipline was always there. It just got more. And then we became good friends while he was my coach, and he was not a handy guy at all. Like, he couldn't hang a picture on his wall. So we sort of traded services, and he was sponsored by a supplement company. So he would say, "Hey, Floody, you know, I got this curtains." He goes, "Do you know how to install a curtain rod?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You think you can do it?" So I'd pick a time of day, go over there, put up this curtain rod and curtains, and he'd give me tubs of protein.
Oh,
You know, so, and then it just went like change a faucet in his bathroom, and he'd give me more supplements and stuff like that, and didn't charge me for coaching me. And that's how it started. And then I ended up with a different trainer years later, a true prep coach who's another cop. Shout out to Jason Green, and phenomenal prep coach. He's an asshole, but he knows it.
Yeah, no, well, you have to be if you're. That's great.
Yeah, so he took me under his tutelage, and I didn't compete that often, that's for sure. I competed in 99, 2000, and then I didn't, and then 2005, and then I was going to compete in New York City in 2011 on the 10th anniversary of 9/11, because the New York City was awarded the World Police Fire Games. And I was like, I am going to be part of this. And actually, one of the judges' wives approached me at a cross-country race that I was watching a buddy run at the 2005 games. And she said to me, she goes, I recognize you from stage. And that's because I totally bleached my hair white.
Okay.
To stand out.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea.
And she goes, I recognize you because of your hair and that. I was like, oh, not because of the body? No. But she said to me, she says, I'll let you in on a secret. She says, they just decided last night who's getting the 2007, 9, and 11. And she goes, New York's getting the 2011 for the 10th anniversary.
Wow.
So I was, outside that circle of higher ups in the organization. I was like maybe the first other one to know.
Oh, wow.
So I set my sights on being part of the anniversary.
3 years down the road.
No,
5 years.
Six years, yeah. And I had been to New York in 2003 and visited Ground Zero while it was still a crater with construction going on and the buildings covered in their mesh and all that. And I actually got to go into the site. The security guard let me and at the time my wife and my buddy and his wife, he was a cop in New Hampshire, and the security guard let the four of us go into the site and into the family trailers that were a memorial. Oh, talk about a waterfall fest, man.
Yeah.
Like he said to us, there's no family members in there now. He says, please be respectful if any come and leave, because they were like these construction trailers, and there were 3 of them set up for the families to come and place things. And they were stacked wall to wall, floor to ceiling with artwork, pictures, letters from kids. And we're standing there reading this stuff. They're like, we were bawling, like just unbelievably sad. But anyway, went to New York 2011 to compete. And that's when one of the hurricanes, I think Katrina, maybe it wasn't Katrina, I don't know.
I don't remember.
One of them was coming up the coast and had already devastated Jersey.
Oh, wow.
And it was headed for New York. And all of a sudden, New York shut down. And I was walking out the door to go for the weigh-in on the Friday night. And don't forget, I'd been dieting for 4 months and getting ready for this show. And I was walking out the door, and an email came in saying it's been canceled.
So you're already in a bitch mode.
I'm in New York. I'm not happy. Well, you saw me because I was dieting.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm literally got up to walk out the door, tan on and everything, and get this email that it's canceled because they've turned the convention center into an emergency shelter.
Oh, for grape's sakes.
And then I was like, oh, fuck's sakes. So what do? I phoned my coach, Jason Green. I said, they've just canceled the show. I said, what am I going to do? I got to compete, get me on a show somewhere. And he's like, chill out. He says, let's look at some things. And like, I think I was in tears on the phone with him, all this preparation, dedication. And he's like, we'll figure it out. He says, don't worry. He says, go out, have fun, eat, enjoy tonight in New York City. Cause like I hadn't eaten anything good or calories or that. So we go out to Times Square, and there's obviously everybody, all these athletes out there, because a number of events had been canceled except for ones that were way out of town. And of course I spot every bodybuilder or every fitness person because they're all fake tans and that, and they're all eating tubes of cake icing and jelly bean, or not jelly beans, but M&Ms, and everybody's eating sugar stuff.
It's hilarious.
And having a beer and stuff like that. And so then I'm like, well, screw it. I'm going to stay in New York and enjoy some of the other shows. Well, all of a sudden it's like, what other shows? Everything's shut down. You can't even go to a restaurant. What do you mean you can't go to a restaurant? Restaurants are closed. Why? Because the workers can't get into New York City because they all live out of New York City. They close the subways because of the hurricane, right?
Oh,
the
wow.
subway tunnels would be flooded. Everything. There were lineups at convenience stores for water that were 3 hours long, and everything was gone. Every liquid had been bought.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was truly like you had no idea that people panicked like that.
Wow.
In preparation for this storm.
It's like toilet paper during COVID.
So we tried to get a flight out because we flew in and had return tickets for like later in the week. So tried to get a flight out the next morning. All the flights were canceled. No flights in and out of New York City. Like, how the fuck do I get home? How's this what do we do? We're stuck in a hotel. Like, no food, no restaurants open, no convenience stores didn't have any food. We got into one and there was like literally nothing, no real food to be had.
Oh, wow.
So ran into two buddies who said, we rented a car. We're leaving tomorrow morning. You want to jump in with us? And I'm like, fuck yeah. Cause they flew out of, I think we all flew out of the island airport.
Right.
So yeah. So the
Jeez.
four of us jumped in the rental car and drove all the way home, on the Saturday. And then they emailed again saying, oh, the show's back on. It's going to be on tomorrow at this location.
Oh,
That's
come on.
crazy.
And so I emailed back and I made a phone call and I said, are you fucked? Like, first of all, every person there that was going to compete has already blown their diet by carbing up and, eating all this junk on the Friday night. And now you're saying that instead of Saturday, it's going to be on Sunday or Monday. And I said, I'm already home. I'm already home in Canada. I'm not coming back, So they ended up having the event somewhere else. And I think it was on the Monday, not the Sunday. Like, they'd pushed it a couple times. I wrote a big letter of complaint. And
How many people stayed?
Not a fraction. Like, the World Police Fire Games is something to behold. It is the next biggest sporting event, or was at the time, spectator-wise and competitor-wise, to the Olympics.
Wow.
Whoa.
It mirrors, and that's what they did. They mirrored the Olympics. So every country sends representatives
Oh, wow.
from their fire or police.
Who's the worst?
Oh, I don't know. Like, but it's incredible. Everybody's got a uniform, like a tracksuit.
Sure.
Because their department buys them a tracksuit. You've got your department flag, your country flag. You march into the stadium just like the Olympics.
Wow.
Or, and march around the stadium. They designed it just like the Olympics. So the one I went to in Indianapolis, Indiana, there were 10,000 competitors.
Wow.
Yeah. From every country in the world.
Man,
that was allowed to.
Is it every year?
No, it's every two. Well, and then they started, I think it's just every two.
Do they still have it?
Yeah. And but I'm not in the loop anymore, as far as I know, but COVID would have shut everything down. So
It'd be cool to see. I mean,
It would be.
Yeah.
So it's a case of it being awarded to a particular city, like you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Toronto had it one year, I believe. I know I'm pretty sure Vancouver did. And it usually jumps continent to continent.
Okay.
So Australia, Melbourne had it, Australia. Indianapolis, Indiana had it. New York City's had it. Quebec.
Wow.
Quebec had it the one year, 2005. That's where I went.
The organization of something like that's a full-time job for a whole
absolutely.
staff of people.
Yeah.
and what
absolutely.
exactly is going on events of wise?
Every sport you can imagine, they have indoor rowing.
Oh shit.
So
Okay.
indoor rowing, they have darts,
see.
they have arm wrestling, they have all your typical
Darts.
sports.
That's
Darts,
that's
yeah.
a pretty taxing sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have all your typical Olympic style events.
Okay.
Obviously in the
And
when
everybody's a copper
or firefighter.
or firefighter. Okay.
Yeah, and they have police specific events and firefighting specific events like the bucket brigade. Like you should see these guys, where they run down they run down a street with a ladder.
Yeah.
And they throw it up, and there's a guy on the end of the ladder that they throw up with the ladder. And
Oh,
he's
wow, no
scrambling
way.
up the ladder, and
That's
And then
cool.
they lift the buckets up.
they lift the buckets up, and
I've
that
seen
they
that.
put together the old style water cannon, and drag it down the street. And yeah, there's some very, very cool events, and then there's some that you would be like, what?
Darts.
Darts, indoor rowing. They have volleyball, they have rugby,
Very cool.
Wow.
yeah,
And
they
there's
have-
enough of you doing this.
they have hockey.
Like, that's
yeah.
crazy.
Like I said, every country. Like I think in 2000 and when I went to Indianapolis, there were probably 20 of us from my department
Oh, well.
that went for all types of different things. And
Hmm.
Glenn did karate.
Nice.
I was his coach.
Very cool.
I was his coach, not knowing much about karate,
That's hilarious.
other than
Kick 'em, Glenn.
Glenn said to me, because you were allowed a corner man, but you weren't allowed to be in the corner, and I had beers in the seats. So Glenn just said, "This is what I do," and he says, "Make me do this." So he said, when you see me like just moving around, like dancing around, he says, snap me out of that.
Okay.
He says, I need to come out of the corner and attack. And sure as shit, he'd lose the first point, because there he is dancing around, and his opponent would kick him or punch him or whatever. The next one, I'm like, I'm yelling for you. I was only 15 feet away in a chair,
Yeah.
or whatever, but I'm yelling at him. I said, whatever I said, I don't know. I said, go or launch or friggin' move, and he comes right out of the corner, bang, or whatever after the bow and that, and back to the corner, boom, and he wins the point. But he fought some tough guys. He broke his knuckles or broke his wrist, I think.
Oh,
In it,
Hey,
yeah.
I
cool.
wanna
That's cool.
see this.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah,
Sounds awesome.
There was his opponent on this one fight that put him out of it. The guy was boxing and doing karate. I think it was karate or taekwondo. I'm not sure. I can't remember what Glenn does. But he does several different styles too.
Yeah.
So anyway, this guy, very impressive. He was a Tennessee cop. And so he was boxing and doing martial arts. He literally ran out of, after he won the match against Glenn, he ran out of there down into another gym entrance and jumped in the ring and boxed and won.
Right on. Jeez.
He was a tough motherfucker.
Yeah, that's cool.
I love
Yeah,
that.
and he was a heavyweight. He was well over 200.
Wow.
So a lot of fun. You meet a lot of people. You got people exchanging tracksuits and that from other countries and that.
Yeah.
Mind you, I didn't, because I liked my tracksuit. I wanted to keep it, but I also wanted. I remember I wanted the one from Australia, the ones they were wearing. I was like, "Fuck, I want that," but I got nothing to trade for it unless I give them mine.
Right.
So, but
That's cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool experience. And then 2005 was Quebec, and that was just as big, I think.
So what are you doing now?
So I competed in June, last June or this June. Yeah. So when we were doing Mayor of Kingstown,
Yeah.
I was getting ready for a show in November in Niagara, but COVID was full on.
Yeah.
I wasn't vaccinated. And I learned, so I was prepping for a November, like mid-November show, I think it was, or late November. And then I realized that there was going to be no concessions for people to be able to get COVID tested. And as long as you tested negative, because the venue said, nope, If you're not vaccinated, you can't be in this venue. So I hit the panic button with my coach, and I was like, what the fuck? I've been prepping now for 2.5, 3 months, I guess. At
Yeah,
that point.
yeah, I remember that.
You know, all through the summer of filming Mayor of Kingstown. And I got gradually a little grumpier and a little grumpier because you guys were able to drink afterwards and eat pizza.
Oh yeah, rub it in your
Yeah,
face.
it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
We're sitting down at the keg, and you guys are having all these big juicy steaks, and I'm having chicken and rice. So then there was a show in Guelph in October, and my coach said, "There's no restrictions for that. They don't come in till November." He says, "Do that show," and I'm like, "That's a month early, man." Like, and he's like, "Don't worry, you're ready."
Yeah, what people don't realize, maybe that some people that are listening, is that you have to peak in bodybuilding. It's a plan. You plan and you peak for that show.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And if you blow it by a day, then you spill over and you look fat, you know, or whatever.
Yep.
You know, your muscles smooth over.
Or you get too lean.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could go both ways.
Yeah. You know, they always say you look better the day after the show, and it's probably true. But yeah, so I ended up having to compete a month earlier than expected. So I did October show. So we did our last day of filming the scene in the truck in the studio, and then we went for breakfast. Remember that? On October,
Yeah, I
October
do.
2nd or something.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, my show was either the 9th or the 16th. So a week or two later, the show that I ended up doing a month early.
Okay.
You know, and I entered a bunch of categories, and I won a couple of them, and second and third, I think.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was. I was pretty proud, and this
And
was
so you should be. It's a lot of work, brother.
well. This was because I needed it because in 2018 I competed at the Toronto Pro Qualifier, and my hip was so bad with osteoarthritis or whatever that it was bone on bone, and I didn't realize my leg had atrophied as much as it did until I saw the stage shots. I still did well conditioning wise, but it was very obvious. Like if you look at pictures, my right leg, you know, was like this big, and my left leg was like this big. You know, it was like, holy shit. You know, how did you even place that well? And my glute had shut off. So believe it or not, you know, your muscles can shut off. So I had half an ass.
Wow.
What do you? What?
He was a
why does that
half-ass
happen?
bodybuilder.
Yeah.
My right ass cheek had atrophied, concave, so that because I had Tanya take a picture straight down from my neck of my bare ass, and I got like literally it looks like half a cheek.
Fascinating.
So my leg had atrophied that much. My hamstring had shut off because this was I was going through this for about at least 3 years of gradually limping more and more. And then I retired. And it was like, as soon as I retired, it got worse. And I was living on Advil, painkillers just to get through. I was still working out as hard as I could. I couldn't squat anymore. Just because I was going down with my hip up in the air and like just this stuff. So when I competed at the International Pro Qualifier, I still did, like I said, okay. I placed, I think third in my category. But to me, I kind of looked terrible because of my leg and all that. So
Right.
I wanted to do another show. And then COVID hit. So I had my surgery in 2018 on Halloween Day, and full hip replacement. Man, that's a barbaric surgery. If you've never looked at it, YouTube it. It's very cool what they do to your leg. Like they cut it open, they chop off the ball of your femur.
Sounds awesome.
It like I'm watching this stuff before I had it done, and I'm like, wow. And then they're like,
I would never look at it before I got it done.
I think it's what helped with my recovery and my acceptance of it. You know, they show them drilling down into the middle of the femur and hammering this sectional spike in. You know, they got a mallet and they're freaking pounding it down the femur.
Yeah, this
And
sounds
then
good.
screwing
Yeah.
on the next section and pounding it down. And then they put this ball that's now your new hip joint on top. And then they grind out your hip socket, you know, with a freaking whatever, a router. And then they line it with titanium, and then they put a like a polymer lining on top of that so that it's smooth, and then they put your leg and jam it back in.
So it gave you confidence. You actually went, you know what, these guys know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I went to the best surgeon. Shout out to Hans Kreeder at Sunnybrook. Honestly, this guy was amazing. You know, I wrote a heartfelt letter to him to get him to take me, because I heard that he didn't just take anybody.
Right.
And I said, I'm a retired tactical officer. I said, in my post-career, I still train tactical people. I still have to do this. I do close protection. I'm an amateur bodybuilder. I need to be able to do all of this stuff. And I'm told that you're the surgeon to get me back there.
Wicked.
And he wrote me back the next day or that day. Like, I did not expect that. And it was from him. And he said, it sounds like you need my services. He says, and I'm willing to do it. He said, but you need to need a referral from your doctor, and you need to be assessed by my team. So I called my doctor. I said, here's the name, write me a letter, you know.
Big time.
And then I went down and was assessed by few different people for different things. And they're like, oh yeah, you're a candidate, you know. It was really funny because before all this, I went for a cortisone shot, and I had this Australian doctor, and he comes in, and I can't do an Australian accent very well, but he looked at the x-rays and he goes, well, mate, your hip's fucked, to put it bluntly. And I'm like, oh, thanks for the confidence. Right? And then I went for the cortisone shot, whatever, the next day or week. And the guy doing the injection, they do it, is so cool with live imaging, right? So they show the needle going
do this,
in.
right?
Yeah, my ankle.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, they show the needle going in so that they can place it precisely.
Yeah.
And he says to me, dude, your hip is fucked. He goes, you got the hip of an 80-year-old like this. And he's like excited about it. And I'm like, thanks a lot. You're just building my confidence. That cortisone shot lasted about a week.
Yeah, I didn't get cortisone. I have another thing, but
Oh, okay. I see. I see.
So then I thought, oh, I'll get another cortisone shot. And they were like, no. He said, if it lasted 3 or 6 months, we would give you another one, but you're too far gone. So that's when I opted for the surgery, and I went full tilt at it. Like, I need this done. I'm getting this done. I'm going to come out of it, and I'm going to compete again. And that was my mindset. You know, you talk about everything is mindset. If you listen to any of my Instagram stuff,
yeah, I have.
You
Of
know,
course.
I'm not always got the greatest mindset, and I can be a negative guy in certain aspects, but I think we all can. But I really do. I push it on Instagram for sure, because there's no real other way to be, other than to have a positive mindset.
100%.
Everything changes with that. And so I got the surgery, and I walked out of the hospital the next day. I mean, it's like going to Shouldice, right? They make you get off the table after a hernia operation and walk to your room. So I come out of recovery, whatever. I'm into my bed. I wake up the next day. I got the morphine thing, and I'm all night long, you know, giving myself over. And the next morning, a doctor comes in and he says, okay, we're going to see how this goes. We got 2 canes and a walker. He goes, first step is put your shoes on. And I'm like, how do I get down there to do it? And he's like, oh, I don't know, figure it out. So I put my shoes on and tie them up. He says, okay, now I want you to stand up, but, you know, take it easy. Hold on to this, whatever. And anyway, he says, okay, take the walker. And he says, stand up. And he says, okay, try 2 canes. And then he says, okay. He says, how do you think you'll be with 1 cane? I said, I won't know until I try. So he took everything away but the 1 cane. He says, okay, come on out in the hall. So I walk out in the hall. He says, walk down the hall. And I'm like, really? Okay. Walk down the hall, walk back. He goes, what side's the railing on in your house and the staircase? I had to think about that for a second. Then he says, okay, come on over here. We're going to walk up the stairs. So I walked up this flight of stairs, probably, I don't know, 12, 15 steps in the hospital, and then back down again, and then back to the room. And he goes, you want to go home? And fuck yeah. Tanya didn't want me to come home. She was having a break. So I'm like, can you pick me up? She's like, what? Why aren't they keeping you? You know, I'm like, okay, this isn't a debate. I want to come home. Come get me. So went home, and I basically spent, that was a Friday that I went home. And I think I spent the next 2-3 days between sleeping in bed and doing my physio exercises that the book showed me to do, and which seems so lame.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they always
So,
do.
like,
physio
they
stuff.
seem so lame. I'm like, what in the fuck is this doing? And before you know it, you're doing them better and more and all that. And then I'm like, okay, I got to walk. I got to, you know, and we live in a rural area. The street, I can walk on the street. There's no sidewalks with no traffic. So out I go. It's the fall. I'm walking down the street, and then I'm like, okay, I need to take my dog for a walk. But I'm holding my dog leash like with 2 fingers in case he pulled, you know, because he's 120
you don't want him
pounds.
to.
Totally.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go. You know, if he pulled, I would have been done. And then it just went from there. And then I eventually started doing weights. And in no time, I was back to
That's great.
squat. Like, it was just amazing surgery. And talk about changing mental health. That's, have you ever had an injury that sidelines you, like takes away your ability to do stuff? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even to a degree, as a skateboarder growing up, I mean, I can feel just my body now. I don't know. I can't identify necessarily what injuries they are. I've had a few,
Right.
but I mean, fuck, I've torn myself apart, and I can feel it just sitting here.
Yeah.
Like and you know, just neck and back and all kinds of things.
And it plays with your mind,
It
you
does.
know, and you had something done to your ankle.
Yeah, I broke my ankle in 1992. That's plagued me to this day. 2 operations. I get shots every couple of years, and it's some kind of a lubricant, shock absorbent thing in there. But I can't do certain things. I can't run.
Right.
I can't run upstairs because my ankle doesn't flex that far.
Mechanics, yeah.
Yeah.
Can we pause right there?
Yeah.
I got pee.
We're going to pause for the cause.
Pee it up, man. Now we're back on.
Okay.
All right, we're back on going again. Welcome back from your pee.
Thank you.
We're short of closing up here, Dave. We've been talking for 2 hours and 45 minutes, something like that.
Obviously, I can talk a lot.
Yeah, well,
It's interesting.
it's a good thing on a podcast. Yeah, I mean, the things you've done in your life, man, are incredible. And one of these days we'll have you back to just
Talk for 3 more.
get deeper about some crazy stories and all that other stuff. Yeah, I really wanted to. I was just telling you now, but I wanted to mention your toe because that was fucking hilarious. We were
Now,
just in
should I
Kingston.
be putting a picture of that toe up on the podcast?
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's all- yeah, it's still-
yeah. It was nasty.
That was just
but-
hilarious, man. I mean, we're doing some pretty tough work. Yeah, I don't know if it's tough, but you know, we had to be on our game and running and boots and you know, with equipment and whatever we're doing. And one day we're just coming back from dinner or something. We're walking upstairs, and you literally.
One day, it was the first day.
It was the first day.
It was the first day we were there.
And we were literally walking upstairs, and you were the last one. You had flip flops on,
It was nasty.
dude. Yeah. And what the fuck? The edge of the stair had like a little steel strip or something like
Yeah,
that.
the stairs were ceramic tiled, and they had a metal strip, you know, for the joint.
The edging.
The edging. And I didn't lift my foot high enough, obviously. And I might have been a little tipsy, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, but I've done it since, but not in the same manner. But so I see how it happens, and I've seen other people do it, and I'm like, that's what fucking happened to me. So the tip of my flip flop
Oh yeah.
Folded under.
so my toes went over the edge.
Yeah.
And I stumbled.
Oh my
so
God.
my foot ripped backwards, literally ripped backwards, and that fleshy part of your big toe, because it's so fat, it just sliced it and peeled it back. But I didn't know it.
All the squeamish people just turned us off.
It
Yeah.
hurt.
Oh, yeah.
It hurt momentarily.
Yeah.
But you guys were more like, and I fell on my knee on the top step, and you guys like, whoa, fuck.
Yeah,
okay? Like, and I was, embarrassed, my ego, whatever. And I stood up, whatever. And I'm good, whatever. And then I forget who it was. Somebody looked down at my foot.
Oh, it was me. I was right in front of you.
And you go,
I was like,
dude, your
dude.
foot's bleeding because the blood's flowing out over my flip flop now. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just go into the bathroom here and get some paper towels. So I go in and I get it. And it's just soaking through. And you guys were going to go do something, go to the bar for a drink. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go up to the room and wrap this up and see. So I went up to the room and I friggin' wrapped it in Kleenex or toilet paper and tape. And of course I didn't have any bandages or whatever. And I'm like, oh, merely a flesh wound.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I looked in the mirror then. I might have held it up into the mirror.
Yeah, it was
then,
nasty.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yo,
and
that was.
oh yeah.
Fuck, man. What the
Yeah. And I was like, but I was concerned. Like I did not care about, what I had done, other than the fact that, holy fuck, is this going to affect? We're filming
Yeah,
more.
the work. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrapped the shit out of it, taped it like you wouldn't believe, put the boots on the next morning and thought, yeah, I feel okay. And went to set. And that day, everybody was asking, and I had taken pictures. That's what I had done. I had reached under my foot because I couldn't see the mirror. And I had taken pictures and gone, oh God, that is bad. Like that's a,
Yeah, it was
so I
bad.
showed people the pictures.
That's
and
probably the one I
everybody's-
have.
Yeah, everybody was like, you need stitches, dude. You need stitches. And I'm like, I don't know. But we got wrapped without going to set that day. And I was like, fuck, somebody's shining on me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then they're like, you need to go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital. I took an Uber to the hospital after we went back to the hotel. And I waited in the hospital for like 4 hours.
But that thumping pain sort of must have worked on you all week.
Well, it did, yeah. But I get in there and blah, 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 finally, and the doctor, and I tell him what I'm doing. And he says, okay, I'll stitch it up. I said, none of this dissolving stitches crap. I need like
The real deal.
Rope.
This is an appendage
Yeah.
reconstruction.
Yeah.
So he stitched me up good. 5 stitches on your big toe, I guess, is a lot.
Oh man, I'm surprised that's all it was. That was a crazy one.
It was right across. It was like a happy face. And and then I just got lucky with our filming.
Yeah.
Because then when we were filming, the first couple days that week was like nothing. We were standing around. We weren't, it was all scenes that we weren't really moving anywhere.
Yeah.
So I was like, and then I would go back to my room and I'd put my foot on ice and
I remember that.
just trying to do everything. It definitely put a damper on me. And
it obviously hit your attitude about things a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, we were all excited to get to Kingston
and have some
like
fun.
right away.
And then right away the first night I do this, But I think, by the end of week 1, I was thinking like, okay, this is going to be fine. It's just gotta heal, but I can do this. It's not hurting to move around, But that was ugly and nasty. And when it was healing, talk about the stuff like the skin falling off and scarring up
God,
and like thickness. Yeah, it's crazy.
you should have saved it. Put it behind glass and on the wall somewhere.
Well, I've had a few good ones. I put a nail through my hand one time with a nailer.
Like
A nail gun?
Nail gun? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I got X-ray pictures of that X-ray too. A 3.5 inch framing nail.
Oh my God.
It's right through the middle. Because I was trying to put this plastic cap that protects the wood on the end of it, and because it had come off. So I put it back on, then I gave it a whack with my hand, and it went ka-chunk.
Yeah, you triggered it.
Yeah, but I didn't know that. Like, it wasn't supposed to be able to do that. I didn't think. I thought you had to actually press the trigger.
I thought, don't you? I thought you did.
No, it's the thing that
You hold the trigger in and then push it down and let it boom, kaboom.
That's what I thought, but this one, for whatever reason, because I didn't have my finger on the trigger, and I smacked it, and
Oh, fuck.
I looked at my hand, and I went, oh, fuck. And I was like, okay, this is going to start bleeding bad and hurt soon, and there was nobody around. So I ran in the, well, I didn't run in the house, but I went in the house, put a tank top on because it was the summer. I was soaking wet with sweat building a shed. Grabbed a bag, put ice in it. Took the time to put ice in the bag, put it on my hand, jumped in my truck, and drove to the hospital.
for them to take the nail out.
For them to take the nail. I looked at the hammer
Yeah.
that was hanging there, and I was thinking about
just like
prying
prying
it
it
out. I
out.
was like, nah, that's going to hurt.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
And how do I keep my hand from moving? Went to the hospital, and I'm sitting there in the chair, and, just minding my own business, waiting. Nurse looks at me, and she goes, and what's wrong with you? And I went like this, and she goes, oh, come with me.
That's hilarious.
Fuck that.
I've had some good injuries. I've done some funny things to myself.
I bet you have, man. But right now, you got to sign this table.
Shit, and I still don't know what to write other than quotes.
Nobody ever does.
You know,
Here, write whatever you want, wherever you want.
yeah. Really quickly though, on that, Charlie said something in his podcast. He said it's always if you fail to plan,
Right.
right? Well, there's a quote that we live by in tactical world: fail to plan, plan to fail. There's also a few other good ones. You can't suck and blow, things like that. So I'll probably write one of those, but 100%
Yeah.
Charlie was right.
Totally.
So,
Cool.
all right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be. It can be anywhere you want.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm going to keep it here.
Okay. Wow. What do we got?
Dead air.
Do you want me to read it out for the people that can't see?
Well, once you're done.
Wait, so you thought Shawnee wrote like a kindergarten?
You can read mine, though.
That's true. It's that point in the podcast again where the Spotify people are missing out. No. Or Apple
You
Music.
gotta, you
yeah,
gotta
I
go.
heard, or-
Even on YouTube, they can't see it. They just know
Yeah,
what
well,
he's
that's
doing.
true. That's true.
One of these days, we'll go up on
Oh, man.
the Going Again podcast Instagram and put up a photograph of the table.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. What just happened there? Huh?
So read it out there, David.
My butcher brothers, blessed to know you, friends for life. Fail to plan, plan to fail. Dave Flood, Floody, 041022.
Fucking A, man.
Beautiful.
Yo, cool.
Love you guys, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, ditto, man.
Hey, right back at you, brother.
I'm truly honored and truly blessed to know both of you. Can't say enough. There's so much. So obviously I can talk a lot because I didn't even realize how much time.
Yeah, you'll be back for part 2. Don't worry about that.
But it's been a blast. Love you guys.
I love you too, man. Thank you so much for coming out here.
Thank
The feeling is absolutely mutual.
Hey, how come I didn't get to drink?
You could.
I didn't even ask.
Want a shot of
I never
tequila?
even thought.
Oh, you got tequila?
Yeah.
Oh, I can do
Okay,
it.
man, we got right here. Yeah, let's do this.
We got to cheer. We got to cheers. We got to have a drink.
Yeah, man.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Fuck. Now I kind of wish.
Dee, do you want a
It's
shot of tequila?
It's probably because you guys did this in the afternoon all the time that it was normal to drink.
Well, see,
Yeah,
you
well,
got
that's
here
kind of
so
the idea.
morning. You got here so early.
Morning.
We never even thought about it.
I actually thought of it on the way here. I thought, is it going to look bad if we're drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning?
No, we wouldn't. Nobody would know the
Yeah,
time.
they would have known. They wouldn't have known.
Now they
We
do.
could have done this
Now
at
they do.
7 a.m.
Dumbass.
Yeah.
Did I say 10 in the morning? I mean, it's 10 at night.
That's right.
You know, it's, hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Absolutely.
And this is good. Good stuff, man. All right.
All right.
Yo, boys.
Never too late.
Never too late.
Cheers, man.
Success always.
Thank you. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Cheers, boys.
And we don't even have to cut here. We can just sit here and chat.
I'm not in a hurry. I'm sure you guys
I'm
got
not in
other
any
things.
real
No,
hurry
no.
here.
I have about 30 emails to address, but it's all good.
That all came in the last 10
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
We had a great time, Floody. I'm so pleased that we met and that we did this together. That Mayor of Kingstown. And
Ditto,
that you-
man.
That you come here to do this with us. This is awesome.
I'm honestly, like, when I say things like I feel blessed and that, I truly, truly do. It's, meeting you guys was another highlight of my life. 100%. Like, I could have talked, and I thought I would talk about so much, like comparisons with Sean's life, and realizing why we're so close, why we're such good friends. And then, the things I've done post-career, like getting into the television and film industry and doing close protection and all those things and meeting people like you. And I always tell people that I met this consultant from Ottawa. He's a native, and he's got a native consulting company, I guess. I don't know where he basically puts people with native background into position.
Okay.
And he
Wow,
gets first
cool.
crack at all these government contracts because it looks good, right? So I met him, great guy, and forget his name off the top of my head. It's in my phone though. But the one thing he said to me is when we met, he says, the most powerful word in the world is hello. And I may have even said this to you guys. I thought about that for a second, but as he continued, and he said, with the simple word hello and handshake, you can open so many doors. And I thought, simple, but it's profound because you're fucking so right. Like, all it takes, because you know how many people in this world just don't make eye contact with other people? Especially in the service industry or whatever, in the film industry, you could say hello to somebody and your life could change. You don't say hello and you just let that person walk by, and it might even change their life.
Absolutely.
I was in, and it I guess it's a simple gesture or whatever. Cause I say it to my youngest daughter all the time. I'm like, any guys you're interested in or whatever, cause she's over in London, England, and she's there by herself. Like, she's just made friends while she's there. She's got no relatives or anything. And, she's always been an introvert. And so I've asked her, any guys you're interested in or, been on any dates or whatever. And I said, cause you have to talk to people. You have to make eye contact if you think somebody's good looking or whatever. You got to make eye contact, and she's a heck of a lot better at it. She just turned 23, and I went and saw her in the summer, and she's a different woman already.
It's a big deal, man. I mean, it's not easy for people. It's not easy I don't think it's really easy for anybody. I think it's like anything else. You gain a certain type of experience, and after you've done it a few times, then you sort of grasp it a little bit.
Yeah.
But, everyone's so different from the next,
And confidence comes with experience.
And
Totally.
COVID, oh my God, like the people that are at that stage in life where they're just learning how to be social, and then COVID, like
Totally.
the government's fucked up a lot of people
Sure have.
by their restrictions and lockdowns and mask
fucking
wearing.
crazy,
and
man.
that.
Totally.
Like you look around, I know you guys see it too everywhere you go, the amount of people still wearing masks.
Oh God.
That truly believe that they're, and you know, again, nobody's going to see this part, right? This is all.
Oh yeah, no, they're seeing it probably.
Okay. Well,
So I start shutting up.
There's no
If you want
there's
to.
no reason we're saying goodbye right now.
it's not a knock to anybody wearing a mask, but I feel
I have
feel
no
sorry.
issue with anyone doing whatever
Whatever
they
they
feel they got to do to protect themselves or anyone else.
yeah.
But it is amazing how little information people are able to gather or willing to look into themselves or whatever it might be. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I do. I certainly do. I look up at a mask these days, and I kind of, like, I get a bit of a.
Yeah, you're like oh God, you know, I wish you knew.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wish you didn't. You know, just
And nothing you can say will convince them.
believe or drink the Kool-Aid that the government was fucking dishing out for free.
Yeah, you got to imagine. Well, I'd like why are they? I don't know.
Well, that's
I feel
another
bad
podcast.
because these people are worried. These people are worried, and what kind of way to live is that?
Totally.
You know, like, you know, I can't imagine it. My parents have graduated to a condo just this summer where it's stepped living. If they need more care or whatever, then they can move into another section. But right now they're self-sustaining in their own condo with a kitchen. They go to a dining room for dinners just because they don't feel like cooking.
Right.
You know, but my dad's not got great health. My mom's suffering in a couple of things, but, you know, and they're 87 and 86. But they got rid of the masks the minute that they sort of felt comfortable.
Right.
Which really was when the government lifted the
Yeah.
sanctions. So, you know, it's like, I think the whole time, you know, they were like, fuck, maybe my kids are right. You
Well,
know,
I
why am I doing this, or why am I, you know?
Sometimes I feel silly in a way because I want people to acknowledge something and go, wow, how are you so ignorant or whatever it is. But prior to COVID, I was not political. I was not thinking. I wasn't giving no shit.
Yeah.
And I was like anyone else. And I don't know what the difference is other than I just found it. I mean, right away when all the vaccine stuff started and all this stuff, I just got really skeptical right away. I questioned it right off the bat. Nothing seemed to make any sense to me. And that's where it just started. I started my journey on trying to figure out what's really going on. Of course, I've not found out anything really, other than this is ridiculous. I don't know.
Other than the fact that every conspiracy theorist, which is not people,
They knock it.
they use that term to describe it in a negative way.
Yeah.
Where being a conspiracy theorist is not a negative thing. But, you know, right from the outset of this whole thing, how many people put out there publicly of what stages and what was going to happen over the coming years?
Right.
Fucking every one of them was
And
right.
they came to fruition. And
And
100%.
they said this from the beginning. This is what's going to happen next, and next, and next, and next, and next, and it fucking happened. You know, some people would say, well, they put that out there, so they made it happen. Sure. But they're not government people. You know, the government put it out there.
Totally.
And made it happen.
well, before the government shuts us down,
Yeah. Yeah, fuck.
we can sit here and sip.
But, yeah, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe we should shut down this and then sip the rest of our stuff without the headphones on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, unless
No,
whatever.
it's all good.
Whatever you want.
Davey, I got to tell you, man, once again, thanks so much for coming. It's been fucking awesome. Love you. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm looking forward to the backyard party, man,
It's been
and the boat.
Yeah.
It's been my honor. and pleasure. You know, if I didn't get invited on, I might have been like,
Yeah.
you know, all pouty. But
Well,
We don't
was
want
bound
to
to
know.
happen.
yeah, no,
bound to happen.
honestly, I love you guys. Like, you changed my life. You know, you did. You effectively changed my life.
And mine as well, by the way.
You know, so
You did to mine. Big time.
and you did to mine, because again, you opened a whole new. You know, I know this is going to be a big love in now, but honestly, everything I do in my post career is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm paralleling my previous career with so much fun shit that's related to it, and you know, I just love it. I love doing it. I love having an impact on people. I love learning new shit, and you're always learning.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, man. And that's what I was doing when I was hanging with you. I was learning. And it's priceless in the world I come from. So
And you guys drank from the fire hose, like I said it when we were doing those 4 days of training, which were
it was bomb.
you mentioned it on one of the podcasts. That like is pretty unheard of. I think with
Charlie.
Yeah, pretty unheard of, right? Having that ability to
Yep, it's-
rehearse, which we weren't really rehearsing. We were rehearsing a sense for that one scene on the couch
Yeah.
without really knowing how it was.
Well, that
gonna-
was actually, but that was also a like that was something to show the
Yeah.
director.
Yeah, that's right. We
and
wanted to shoot a
whatever.
previs and
Yeah,
how
'cause-
things were going to
right.
unfold. But
But the other training we were doing, the 2-over-1 and
Yeah.
the transition drills, and you know,
Man, that was the best.
It does. It looks so awesome when it's done.
well, Taylor Sheridan wanted authenticity. He spent
got
the
it.
money. He got his authenticity. It looks amazing. And a lot of shows really don't care about that. That's which is a shame. But as a stunt coordinator, it was an absolute delight for me to be able to bring people in, and Charlie and all his stuff, and everybody, you guys, to create something and show Taylor. But the man's a force of nature. I've said it before.
Yeah.
If he wants it, he got it. And
Hopefully that continues.
I was really pleased to be a part of that.
Yeah, man.
I don't know if they'll bring if there's going to be a season 3.
They ain't coming back.
There'll be a season 3, but they won't be coming back.
You don't think so?
Maybe season 10.
There's no reason to.
No.
You know,
I really don't think there's a reason to.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely did not get hung up on expecting a season 2. You know, where I think a couple of the guys were like banking on it.
I did.
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd hoped for it.
I won't deny I hoped for it, but I was like, fuck it, if this never happens again. I had an amazing time, and I'm sure
100%.
everybody else was the same way.
Sure.
But I was like, no, there will be something better next year or different next year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there'll
yeah.
always be something.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, and more so for you in that line of work. For me, there won't necessarily be another stunt acting movie or TV series or whatever. But I mean, it's funny. Netflix just put out Rookie Blue,
Right.
and it's showing as one of the top 10 in Canada right now, or top 10 on Netflix. And that's where we got with our supplying special skills extras.
Okay.
Our first sort of real break.
Cool.
We did almost so I started watching it from episode 1, season 1, which I
Hell, you
never.
spot me then.
Oh yeah.
I won't tell you where I am. But
Okay.
you spot me.
Well, we are.
Me too.
Anytime there's a SWAT team in it, it's us.
Okay,
It's me
cool.
and my friends. Casey's in it. You know,
Cool.
all over the place, and
great.
a bunch of other guys. And yeah, we did almost every season of that, and whatever episodes there was a SWAT team in it, we did.
That's great.
So we had a good couple of years where we had a lot of shows that we were doing SSE stuff, and then COVID hit and everything shut down.
Well, if my shows need you, you will be here, and I won't be hiring you as an SSE. But
Absolutely.
That said,
I'd work with you in any capacity, whether it's an SSE, a consultant,
I understand.
or a stunt actor,
Or a fluffer. You
Yeah,
become out, be a
yeah,
fluffer.
Oh yeah,
Whoops.
yeah.
podcast took a turn.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I want to know what you mean, you know?
It's just
It's the tequila.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's just fun. It's just fun,
Yeah, of
and that's
course.
what that like if you can have fun at what you're doing, it's not work.
100%.
You know, and I try to instill that in everything I do.
It's great.
So
Love it, man.
yeah.
We're almost done here, D. I'm going to call you cut in a minute.
Any last words?
Yeah. Any last words there, Dave? What do you think?
Actually, Adam said something that I wanted to. Adam made a point in his podcast about, and I forget the actual wording, but it was like having military or tactical people running like a set. And we've talked about this a million times, and we've watched things how they go, and it's some sets are all over the place. And I know that there's stuff that I don't understand or see, but then I've been on sets where I see the whole everything, the cameras, everything, and shoot one side of the house. And it's not because of the lighting. And then they go, oh yeah, we got to do this. And they move everything back to the other side of the house where they had previously had everything, and shoot something else in the same lighting, in the same everything. And I'm like, oh my God, this fucking, no wonder it costs so much money. And I'm like, they need a tactical guy to plan this day.
Well, the first AD is that tactical guy who, and really good ones, make that plan.
There you go.
So there's
Good ones. Yeah.
However, that said, in their defense, sometimes a creative decision is made that, and you have to allow for that on set. You have to be fairly malleable that way creatively. So you've created your shot list. You know you need this from here, you need that from here, and so something all of a sudden, oh hey. Right. And then you may have to move. Now, yes, I've been on lots of sets where things moved back because somebody made a mistake and they forgot or they needed something. But a lot of times it's a creative decision.
Yeah.
But I agree with you.
But it's thinning out there. There's a lot of productions and not a lot of professionals.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Well, no, and things are watering down because there's so many venues for shows. Not the really, really experienced professionals who have been doing it for a long time can't do them all.
Yeah.
So some shows have to start bringing in younger crews. And when I say younger, I mean by years in the business. So yeah, that happens. I mean, we see it all the time in stunts. Not all the experienced stunt coordinators. We can't do them all.
Right.
So then they start hiring stunt people who want to insinuate themselves into a stunt coordinator position. They just don't have that experience.
Please say your quote so that I can remember it again, because I love it, and I've.
It's on the end of this podcast.
Yeah, it'll be right after this. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Experience isn't expensive; it's priceless.
Okay. I love that because it's so true. And you said that the first day we met when you were talking about
That's how I feel
applying
after.
for Mayor of Kingstown. And it's 100%. You are so right.
That's how I felt
Yeah.
after working with you guys, man.
It was Andrew's idea to put it at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, it's 100%. I'm with you on that. That's a good quote.
And I was headhunted for a job just before Mayor of Kingstown. And this is how much I believe in, things will happen for a reason. So I was headhunted for a job, and the headhunter said to me, he says, here's what the job pays. This is what you'll be doing, blah, 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 blah. And he talked to me I was actually on my way to Charlie's, talked to me on the phone for a good hour. And he says, what do you think? And I said, well, to be perfectly honest with you, that's not my value. I'm worth more. And I had never done that before. And I said, some clients I charge this and some clients I charge that, depending on what the job is. And he says, well, what's your value? And I said, well, for this job, I said at least this. I should have said a higher number, but I said at least this. And I expected, because it was quite a bit more than he was offering. And he said, I don't think that's unreasonable. And I said, well, I know it's not unreasonable because there's only a handful of people like me in Ontario that are retired that can do that and have the qualifications you're looking for. And he said, well, I'm pretty sure I can get that number. And he says, let me get back to you. And he got back to me later that day. And he says, yeah, we can give you that number.
Sure.
And I was like, sweet. I was like, yeah.
Your opening negotiating position should always start far, far higher than what you expect. And when they ask you, can we do this? What I try to tell everyone is that you're not purchasing Randy Butcher for a month or for 3 months. You're purchasing Randy Butcher for an entire lifetime of experience. And that's what I'm going to bring every single day.
Yeah.
That's what you're paying for. You're not paying for the day. You're paying for my lifetime of experience.
I love that. I do because they were going to pay for 17 years of my courses and my intellectual property
100%.
and my abilities. And
People say, hey, it's only going to take you a couple hours. No, it's not. It's going to take me an entire lifetime so that couple of hours goes by smoothly and no one gets hurt.
Totally, man.
yeah, I love that analogy that, I've heard out there, and I'm sure you've heard it, like a carpenter. Well, can't you do that cheaper? Or I can do it. Okay, well, you can do it.
Go nuts.
Okay, well, will you show me how? Well, yeah, that'll cost you this much.
That's right.
And he says, oh, okay. Well, that sounds good. And then he says, so what tool do I need for this? Well, you need this, but you're going to have to rent it from me. And it just keeps going till the guy says,
Well,
okay,
just do it yourself.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Love it.
Yeah.
On that note, we're going to say goodbye. Once again, yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's over. Davey, thanks for coming.
Oh,
Thank
thanks
you,
for
man.
having me. Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Love it.
Cheers,
you
bud.
guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Cut it, D.